discussion items this evening. The first one is related to our Wi-Fi project, and that'll be led by Mr. DeLuca. Our second is Winchester Gardens ABC license discussion, and that'll be led by Mr. Desiderio. And then finally, our third discussion item will be led by myself, authorizing securing an estimate for needed rehabilitation study for 7 West Parker. From there, we'll move into our 22nd agenda item, which is our consent agenda. There are a plethora of things on the agenda this evening, including the purchasing of electronic signage board, the emergency of temporary appropriations, 2 resolutions related to our summer 2021 breakfast and lunch program, which was phenomenal for our deserving children and families. We'll also approve improvements completed by KV Liquors, Joe Canal. We'll also award contracts, including our new fuel station at the DPW facility. We'll also improvements at the Maplewood Jewish Center on 113 Parker. We'll award a contract for work at 2 Prospect intersections. We'll appoint a Public Works Building and Grounds foreperson. We'll also refund tax overpayments. We'll award a contract regarding IT and other agenda systems related from SHI International. We'll do a resolution computing the reserve for uncollected taxes, bills and claims, establishing our Maplewood Community Pool membership fees, establishing our concierge service for the Maplewood Pool this year, which is Freeman's Fish Market, which was an outstanding job. Love the lobster. We'll then also award contracting for the purchasing of 2 vehicles related to DPW, and then also award our contract for $42,000 to address our organic field maintenance at the Heart. Then we'll move on to our public comment, which will be on any subject matter, which will be 3 minutes, and hopefully people will still be with us. And then we will finally adjourn. So that entails a pretty robust agenda for this evening. We're looking forward to a couple of the presentations that will come. And now I'd like to yield the floor to hear our first proclamation regarding Older Americans Month. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm going to take this one. It's my privilege to assist the mayor and the Township Committee in proclaiming May as Older Americans Month. Whereas older Americans of all backgrounds are deserving of our utmost respect, gratitude, and admiration for their contributions to our society, and whereas older Americans of all backgrounds have made immeasurable contributions to our society and helped to support and inspire others, and whereas in our community, older adults are a source of strength. Through their experiences, successes, and difficulties, they have built resilience that helps them to face new challenges, and through their inspiration and wisdom, they have been pillars of strength during some of our most challenging times. And whereas we can learn from their history, resolve, and determination in building a strong and inclusive community, and whereas the Township of Maplewood will continue to support our older residents through its age-friendly community services, the Maplewood Seniors Advisory Committee, SOMA 2 Towns for All Ages, and live up to its designation as an AARP livable community. Now therefore be it resolved that Frank McGehee, Mayor of the Township of Maplewood, and the Maplewood Township Committee do hereby proclaim May 2021 to be Older Americans Month. And we urge every resident to recognize older Americans and the people who support them as essential contributors to the strength of our community. And I just want to add that I want to thank the folks, particularly in Maplewood Township, who work directly with our seniors. Our age-friendly initiative, Maplewood Township, has become a model around the state. We've been recognized by the AARP. Along with our partners in South Orange and elsewhere, Maplewood really looks forward to continuing to be a great community for all ages and to continue to offer programming and other opportunities for our older residents, and to make sure that we continue to expand those offerings. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to all of our older residents and those who support them.
Thank you, Mr. Lindbergh. Anyone else like to say anything?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to add a couple of comments to further edify the proclamation and the importance of our community in South Orange and Maplewood as we strive to become more age-friendly, looking at ways that we can help our older residents truly age in place. The governor's office announced yesterday that New Jersey entered the AARP network of age-friendly communities, which was welcome news. Of course, South Orange and Maplewood, we entered that network back in 2018 because of our strong senior advisory committees in both towns, and obviously because of our South Orange, Maplewood, Two Towns for All Ages initiative, which has always been led by our great steward, Kathy Rowe. And now we have Carmen Morales as well in Maplewood added to the team. So I just wanted to note that. I didn't want it to go unnoticed. They're great and important work. And truly, as Mr. Lembrick stated, we are a model for the nation, and we all should be proud about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis. And thank you again, Mr. Lembrick. We'll now move on to agenda item number 6, our proclamation regarding Asian American Pacific Islander Month. And I'll read that one myself. Whereas Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month is observed annually in May to celebrate the contributions that generations of AAPI have made to American history, society, and culture. And whereas the month of May was selected for 2 reasons. First, to commemorate the arrival of the first known Japanese immigrant to the United States on May 7th, 1843. And secondly, to honor the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10th, 1869, which upwards of 20,000 Chinese workers helped to construct. The month pays tribute to the generations of Asian and Pacific Islanders who have enriched the United States' history and are instrumental in the future successes. And whereas anti-Asian rhetoric certainly did not start with the pandemic, since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, scapegoating our Asian siblings became a convenient excuse for making hate crimes and especially unspeakable acts of violence, targeting the Asian community at large, even more persuasive. And whereas the Township of Maplewood supports inclusion and belonging for all people, for people of all races, national origins, and ethnic backgrounds. It is critical to guarantee the safety and security of American people. And whereas, as a community, we must do our part to speak out against racism and stand up to hate wherever it may exist. For our Asian siblings, that begins with acknowledgement and changing the overall tone of our collective conversation. And even while we may not feel like that's enough, change starts in each and every one of us. Now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee of Maplewood that we do hereby proclaim the month of May 2021 as Asian American Pacific Islander Month. Thank you.
Here.
We will now move on to agenda item number 7, which is the presentation by the subcommittee of our Environmental Advisory Committee. So I will yield the floor. I think I see Rachel. I think she's part of the presentation.
Yeah.
Hey, Rachel.
Mayor, if I might, I'd just like to introduce Rachel. Rachel is a new member of our Environmental Advisory Committee where I serve as liaison. She's joined by Jonathan Poor, also a member of the Environmental Advisory, and I'm sure we have some of the members of that committee in our audience tonight along with, and Rachel has worked really hard on this presentation. Much of it, many of us, you've heard from me and presentations in the past with regard to leaf blowers, but this goes a little more extensive. And in advance, I'd like to thank the experts that she's brought along with her to do this. So I know she's going to try to keep it tight. So I will turn it over to you, Rachel, and thanks so much for all your hard work on this.
Well, thank you. I'll just get right to it. I know one of it quick as we can, so I'm going to share my screen here. How does that look for everybody?
Looks good.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor McGehee and Township Committee. My name is Rachel Metka, and I am a member of the Environmental Advisory Committee. Tonight, our committee will propose that gas leaf blowers be phased out over the next 2 years. Maplewood is a proud leader in sustainable practices and has shown that we take the lead in protecting public health and safety of residents. My fellow committee member, Jonathan Poor, will speak to the history of this initiative.
Thank you, Rachel. In the early 2000s, owing to increasing use of leaf blowers in town, residents formed a group called CALM, Citizens Against Loud Machines. After extensive meetings between residents, Township Committee members and landscapers, an ordinance was enacted in 2003. The 2003 ordinance mandated the use of quieter 65 decibel blowers between May 1st and October 15th of each year. Landscapers were required to register their equipment with DPW and get a sticker signifying that the blower was 65 decibel compliant. This ordinance proved difficult to enforce, and after a few years, the 65 decibel restriction was largely ignored. In 2016, Committeewoman Nancy Adams formed a subcommittee to discuss solutions to the ineffective 2003 ordinance. This led to a pilot program where gas-powered leaf blowers were completely banned during the summer of 2016. Based on facts gathered by the subcommittee, the town enacted a new ordinance in 2017 that prohibited gas-powered leaf blower use by commercial entities between May 15th through September 30th of each year. Later that year, a one-day workshop was held for the community and landscaping companies with a health, professional, and community panel. There was also a demonstration of electric equipment. In 2021, the ordinance was updated to explicitly include all gas-powered blowers. The ban was changed to also apply to residents and was extended by 15 days. So Maplewood has had close to 20-year history of residents pushing for a ban on gas-powered leaf blowers. Tonight, we are proposing to phase out gas-powered leaf blowers entirely over the next 2 years. And yes, that will be 20 years since the 2003 ordinance. In tonight's presentation, we will discuss the following: reasons for a ban, why ban gas-powered leaf blowers, steps for a smooth implementation of the ban and a timeline, workability, how a gas-powered leaf blower ban can work, and case studies. Complete bans have been implemented elsewhere.
Why ban gas leaf blowers? America's manicured front lawns represent the pride of home ownership. Landscaping companies provide a valuable service. However, maintaining our lawns with gas-powered leaf blowers are putting the health of workers and residents at risk. They are also causing disruptions to our neighbors' lives and destroying local wildlife habitat. We will first explain the health hazards. The operators who regularly use these machines for hours a day, as well as children and the elderly, are the ones who are most affected by the health hazards. The negative health effects are damage in noise and disruptions, toxic emissions, and harmful particulates. We will first look into the noise they emit. Our first speaker this evening is Dr. Ree Rosenman-Nessen, Doctor of Audiology and founder of Hearing Doctors of New Jersey, who will help us understand how sound is measured and hearing loss occurs. Welcome, Dr. Rosenman-Nessen.
Hi. Oh,
Hi.
I have to change the slide, or are you changing the slide? Sorry.
Oh, you got the slide.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you. I have some formal remarks prepared. Being around too much noise, like loud noise, and using a leaf blower can cause permanent hearing loss. And once it's gone, you can't get it back. Noise-induced hearing loss is a significant, often unrecognized health problem among U.S. adults. Nearly 1 in 4 adults have noise-induced hearing loss. Hearing plays an important role in communication, health function, and quality of life. Untreated hearing loss is associated with decreased social, psychological, and cognitive functioning. Hearing ability is inversely associated with distress, depression, loneliness, and a significantly higher unemployment rate. Noise is measured in what are called decibels. Decibels are measured on a logarithmic scale, meaning even a small increase in decibels has a large impact on how intense a sound is. For example, a 70 decibel sound is 10 times more intense than a 60 decibel sound. Over time, listening to loud sounds at high decibel levels can cause hearing loss or other hearing problems like a ringing sound in your ear that won't go away. The louder the sound is, the longer you are exposed to it, the more likely it will damage your hearing. The more often you're exposed to loud sounds over time, the more damage that can occur. I recently saw a patient in my office who was in charge of lawn maintenance at one of the local golf courses. Due to his exposure to loud noises, he had significant noise-induced hearing loss that made it extremely difficult for him to even communicate in a one-on-one conversation. One of my main concerns with gas-powered leaf blowers and lawn equipment is the damage it has on the workers who often are without the means to get the hearing help they need. Instead, these vulnerable, hardworking individuals have even more limited opportunities due to their inability to hear and communicate effectively with other people. I'd like to take a moment to explain how we hear and why loud noise can be so damaging. When the sound enters the ear, it first travels through the ear canal into the middle ear, which is the space that sits behind the eardrum. From there, the sound wave enters the cochlea or the hearing nerve, where there are tiny, very sensitive hair cells that line the entire structure. When the sound wave comes into the ear, it moves the hair cell, and when the hair cell moves, it sends a nerve impulse to our brain, and we understand that as speech. When the hair cells are damaged, it requires even more volume or energy to stimulate that hair cell and create the nerve impulse so our brains can understand and hear what is being said. The CDC has found that just 2 hours of exposure at 85 decibels of noise can cause permanent noise-induced hearing loss. Gas-powered leaf blowers create noise levels up to 110 decibels at the operator's ear and 83 decibels at 50 feet away. In addition, most types of hearing protection on the market today are not capable of abating the noise of a 100 decibel machine down to the required 85 decibel OSHA standard. And sadly, once the damage is done to the hair cells, it cannot be reversed. Noise-induced hearing loss, like other types of hearing loss, can be very gradual, and most often the person is not aware of the damage that has occurred to the hair cells until years later. This can all be avoided by limiting excessive noise exposure.
Thank you, Dr. Rosen-Nelson. Thank you. Noise pollution also has non-auditory health effects on health. Gas leaf blower noise has a strong low frequency component that makes it travel long distances and penetrate walls and windows. Dr. Arlene Bronzaft, environmental psychologist who helped revise New York City's noise code, described low frequency noise as the type of noise you feel. A Harvard Medical School study found that a gas leaf blower sound remains higher than the WHO outdoor daytime sound level standard of 55 decibels out to 800 feet from the point of operation. In Maplewood, an 800-foot radius, the red circle on the map, can cover over 100 homes. This study used only one leaf blower. However, in Maplewood, up to 3 are often used together on one property. Given the distance the noise pollution can travel, and given the large number of lawn care companies operating in Maplewood, it is easy to see that thousands of homes, schools, and daycares are affected by leaf blower noise on a daily basis. Noise levels higher than the WHO standard chosen to protect people from developing hearing loss and ensure public health and welfare. Noise pollution significantly impacts public health. Research suggests it can raise stress, affect mental health, and contribute to developing health issues such as high blood pressure and heart disease. Children are particularly vulnerable to negative health effects of noise pollution. In children, noise exposure has a negative effect on learning and cognition. More than 20 studies have demonstrated that children whose classes are interrupted by aircraft, road traffic, or rail noise read at a lower level, struggle more with memorization, and perform worse on standardized tests than children whose classrooms are quieter. When discussing a leaf blower ban, our township committee will be concerned about cost. So when weighing the cost of transition, we must also consider the cost of damaging noise.
Noise is an obvious health hazard from gas-powered leaf blowers. However, they also emit high levels of toxic emissions and particulate matter into the air we breathe. Gas-powered leaf blowers typically use two-stroke engines, which are dirtier and less fuel efficient than four-stroke engines used in cars. By design, these engines combine a mixture of gasoline and oil in the combustion chamber, and then spew out as much as 1/3 of that fuel as an unburned aerosol. Maplewood's 2017 leaf blower ban was covered by the New York Times. The author Rhonda Kazin illustrated the excessive hydrocarbon emissions of a half hour of yard work by writing, "Blow leaves from your lawn or drive from Maplewood to Juneau, Alaska. Your choice." Particulates are produced from the engine of gas leaf blowers and from the hurricane force winds blowing particles up from the ground. We are very grateful to have Dr. Hal Strelnick here tonight to speak on how toxic emissions and particulate matter cause harm to our community and to those who work in it. Dr. Strelnick.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Hal Strelnick. I'm a professor, as you can see on the slide, of family and social medicine and of epidemiology and population health at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. I was principal investigator of an environmental justice grant from the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, an institute among the National Institutes of Health, or NIH, that studied the relationship of adult and childhood asthma with both stationary and mobile sources of air pollution in the Bronx. I've lived in Montclair, New Jersey since 2007. I would like to speak about the health effects of gas-powered leaf blowers in support of the proposal to limit their use in Maplewood. Gas-powered leaf blowers pose a strong threat to community health because of their exhaust emissions, as Mr. Poor just described. These machines emit enormous amounts of fine and ultrafine carbon particulate matter, which can linger in the air for days. And that was illustrated in the previous slide that Mr. Poor showed. These invisible carbon soot particles carry many chemicals on their surfaces. Most gas-powered leaf blowers have two-stroke engines that run on a combination of gasoline and oil and thus produce an especially toxic exhaust, as Jonathan said. These emissions include large amounts of unburned fuel, carbon monoxide, cancer-causing hydrocarbons, including benzene, butadiene, and formaldehyde, asthma-inducing ozone and nitrous oxides, and asthma-aggravating fine and ultrafine particulate matter. Independent laboratories have measured the air pollution generated in these two-stroke engines and found that their hydrocarbons, nitrous oxides, and carbon monoxide dramatically exceeded those of cars and pickup trucks, which have exhaust mitigation systems that include catalytic converters, and their exhaust emissions are regulated by the federal government. California air quality officials estimated that in 2020, leaf blowers and other small two-stroke engines produced more hydrocarbon-based ozone pollution than all of the passenger cars in the state. Leaf blowers generate copious amounts of fine and ultrafine particulate matter, both through their exhaust and the dust blown into the air. The smaller the particulate size, the farther into the lungs they penetrate. So ultrafine particles, so-called PM 2.5, are worse than the fine particles, PM 10, in generating inflammation and exacerbating asthma and emphysema and potentially causing cancer, not just in the lungs, but also in the bladder. Using epidemiological methods, fine and ultrafine particulate matter have been linked to increased mortality from pulmonary or lung disease, cardiovascular or heart disease, as well as cancer, overall mortality, and now even COVID-19 mortality. Unlike emissions from smokestack industries and power plants or along major highways, the subject of my research, this source of air pollution is close to the humans who operate the leaf blowers. Because these exhaust aerosols linger near the ground for up to a week, they expose children and residents long after the lawn care workers have packed up their backpack machines and moved on. Unlike vehicle and smokestack emissions, which are regulated at the state and federal levels, Maplewood can better protect those who live and work here from these invisibly toxic machines. When the use of gas-powered leaf blowers in our neighborhoods, in our parks, and in and around our schools remain virtually unfettered, everyone in the community is put at greater health risk. At the request of New York Mayor David Dinkins, the late Mayor Dinkins, I wrote a paper called "What's a Mayor to Do About Health?" Since most regulations are at the federal level with the EPA or the transportation level with for interstates. And my focus is on what a mayor and a town council could do. So today, there are cleaner, safer, effective alternatives to gas-powered leaf blowers that are readily available. These include electric machines whose effectiveness and price have improved dramatically in recent years. I urge you to take whatever steps you can to improve the community and public health, limit the use of gas-powered leaf blowers in Maplewood and their toxic emissions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Strelnick. We would now like to speak to the environmental benefits of a gas leaf blower ban. Grass clippings, leaves, and insects are beneficial to our yard and the environment. Grass clippings, when left in place after cutting the grass, will provide a ready source of fertilizer while helping the soil retain water, which promotes a healthy lawn. Research has shown that leaving short clippings can supply up to 40% of a lawn's annual fertilizer needs. Leaves are also beneficial. Leaves have been described as gardener's gold. Mulched leaves decompose and turn into organic matter. Mulched leaves are better for the greater community too, because they stay on site and out of landfills and waterways. All leaf blowers produce hurricane-force winds, up to 200 miles per hour at ground level, blowing away nature's mulch from beneath shrubs and trees, denying nutrients to plant roots, and killing beneficial insects. Insects and other pollinators are an extremely important part of our planet's ecosystem. Insects form the foundation of our food web. Honeybees, monarch butterflies, and fireflies have seen huge declines in recent years. In fact, insect species are declining worldwide. Based on the evidence just presented, the Maplewood Environmental Advisory Committee recommends that the Township Committee ban gas-powered leaf blowers. The health hazards citizens are exposed to from gas leaf blowers outweigh the possible benefit they provide. Turning to implementation, the blue bars show when gas-powered leaf blowers would be banned. Supposing implementation in the second half of 2021, a total ban on gas-powered leaf blowers would be phased in over a period of 3 years. In 2021 and 2022, they would be allowed in October and November. In 2023, they would no longer be allowed. The phase-in will allow for experimentation with other methods of leaf management. For example, mulching, simply mowing over the leaves, raking leaves into beds or into piles for pickup, putting leaves in compost or leaving leaves in place to support local ecosystems. People would have time to adjust to working with blowers or without blowers or with electric to see what would work best for them. Now that we have covered the phase-in approach to the ban, we can look at the terms of the proposal. It will be critical to include homeowners in the equation, to educate homeowners as to the reasons for the ban, reducing pressure on landscapers, and to hold homeowners responsible for violations. After speaking with landscapers, it was clear that time is extraordinarily important to stay profitable. However, they felt pressure from property owners to not leave any grass clippings behind. Even though they were often aware that grass clippings are free fertilizer and gas leaf blowers are harmful to their workers. It is crucial to treat landscapers and property owners equally and to ticket both landscape company owners and property owners. Property owners should be responsible for work done on their property, especially for work that can negatively affect their workers, neighbors, and the wider community. Property owners are already ticketed when they do not comply with code protecting the community as a whole. For example, when they do not clean the sidewalk of snow and ice. Property owners should also be ticketed when their workers do not comply with this ban. Jonathan will now speak to the support for this proposal.
This proposal can be successful with effective communication, not just with landscapers, but with residents also. The landscapers need our support to educate residents on the dangers these machines pose to workers and residents. The Maplewood Environmental Advisory Committee can help in several ways. Collaborate with Green Team to inform residents and landscapers of the health hazards from leaf blowers, and publicize green practices and their benefits. Arrange demonstrations of electric blowers and alternatives. Create a checklist to help property owners and landscape maintenance owners agree on how to comply with the ban. Maintain a list of companies committed to green practices. One landscape company owner who has been using electric equipment for years is Dan Delventhal of Mow Green. I'm pleased to introduce Dan Delventhal, founder of Mow Green LLC and accredited organic land care professional. Mow Green is a carbon neutral company focused on sustainable lawn care technologies and services. I have a couple of questions that maybe Dan can answer. Firstly, are electric blowers powerful enough?
Well, hi, thank you for having me. I really, I think what you're doing is really important. The physicians have taught us that, and anyone who sees it happening near their property or experiences it knows it's got to change. So I've been at many meetings volunteering my time. Many towns are enacting ordinances. I was part of Larchmont, New York's historic ban, and just getting out to try to talk about answer these questions. These are good questions. Electric blowers are powerful enough to displace gas leaf blowers, and There's so much better because you avoid the noise and the pollution. There's still some particulate issues, but there's no reason to use gas leaf blowers because electric has so many benefits and avoids so many detriments associated with gas. CFM is a term that stands for cubic feet per minute. Most of these gas leaf blowers, backpack leaf blowers for commercial use, are between 600 cubic feet per minute, CFM, and 1,000. And today you can get 1,000 CFM electric blowers, but do you really need it? Practices need to change because landscapers think that they want to keep getting their fixed fee to strip all the leaves off of the property. So the more they can, the more wind speed they can get and move that infantry line across, the more money they're going to make. But it's a flawed desire that they have. So electric blowers are as powerful as gas leaf blowers. And Mogreen serves 60 acres a week, no gas leaf blowers, all electric or other methods that minimize the use of blowers. And we prefer handheld units, which are 650 CFM. So that's not the most powerful electric blower available. And for that matter, these units are a mix between, residential and commercial prosumer. So for $300, a handheld 650 CFM electric blower can blow a pine cone off a pool cover from 20 feet away. So times have changed. Anyone who 10 years ago might have been a valid argument to say that electric hasn't caught up yet, but there's no reason they're on par.
Dan, the question of batteries, how do you keep the batteries charged for a full working day?
Well, minimizing the use of blowers is a big step, but it's nice to be able to dust off hardscapes and walks and driveways, and if you do need to move some debris, you may need more than one battery in a day. And so we bring a few extras, like buying your gasoline in advance. So we bring a few extra, and most of our customers, I would say 90% of our customers, have outdoor electric outlets. And 99% of those people are happy to let us charge because they love the service, the fact that it's quiet and it doesn't damage their health or their neighbor's health or disrupt their studies or their work. So, and it's amazing. It costs 15 to 25 cents to charge an electric blower battery. And so we pretty much can go through a day with a few extra batteries, charging now and then 10 cents here, 20 cents there at our customer sites. And it's really a non-issue. On very few occasions, we run into problems where there may be 4 or 5 properties in a row where we don't have access to electric, but there's even ways to get around that. We can plug a charger right into our big electric mowers. Of course, everyone's not going to bring big electric mowers around, but I would say it's the exception that you'd ever have an issue charging a battery.
That's great.
With no gas leaf blowers used at all.
And so, how are your customers feeling about the results and I guess with the prices?
Pretty good. We have high customer retention, and that's evidenced by our growth rate. We have grown 30% per year for 8 years straight. And people call us, we serve 13 or 14 towns. I have an MBA, but it wasn't the best business strategy to take all environmentally conscientious customers who wanted to partner with us and lead the way to try to clean up their neighborhoods. So we followed those people and we served 13 towns. And we get calls from other towns all the time saying, oh, we can't believe, you have gotten rid of the gas leaf blowers and we'd like to work with you. So customers are happy, and there's a high capital cost. In other words, if somebody Well, it's not that high, actually. It's a very modest cost to eliminate gas leaf blowers. I'll just stay focused on that part of it. So it's a modest cost. And so if you spend a few hundred or even $1,000 equipping your workers with a quieter, less zero polluting tool, it's inexpensive and it costs you less to own it and operate it. The fuel cost, the cost to keep the unit running is 50 to 70% less over time, and the maintenance is much lower. And so our customers are happy, and there is no reason that the zero emission service should be any more than gas. And see, I get off script, and there you go. I mixed up a couple words.
Well, thank you very much.
We average $40 to $45 an hour, which is, I think, on par with most groups. Worth noting that blowers are good for move, and I tell everybody, move piles, create piles, don't move them. So you use blowers less. And we do leaf cleanup much faster by mulch mowing leaves. And we also have discovered like 50% savings in time when you mulch mow leaves and put them in beds. And all the people in a lot of the scientists in terms of who are trying to help us save biodiversity in the food web, they talk a lot about keeping those leaves in the beds through the winter all the way up until May. And there's no reason to actually take them out ever. They compress 16 to 1, a great mulch. If you need some color framing your property, put a thin layer of mulch on top, save money, and it looks like the same thing, only it's a million times better for the environment.
All right, thanks, Dan. Now Rachel will talk about some case studies.
Leaf blower bans can be successful. Presently, over 170 municipalities in 31 states have enacted regulations on the use of gas-powered leaf blowers. Aspen was one of the first municipalities to pass a complete gas leaf blower ban back in 2003. Washington, D.C. also passed a complete ban on the use and sale of gas-powered leaf blowers in late 2018, which goes into effect January 2022. In response to the COVID state of emergency, Larchmont, New York placed an immediate ban on both gas and electric blowers. Since then, they have voted to phase out gas completely over a 2-year period. Larchmont believes a ban on leaf blowers could actually become a selling point for Larchmont, making them a modern, quiet village more appealing to everyone, especially people who work from home. Making transitions is never easy, but it has been done time and time again as hazards become clear and innovations available. Greg Easterbrook, a writer and contributor editor of the Atlantic Monthly, said, "In every case, not in many cases, in every case, when clean, new technology replaces obsolete technology, quality of life improves, costs are lower than expected, and people say, 'Why didn't we do this sooner?' The time is now." We would like to end this presentation with a quote from Peter Behuth, former executive director of Greenpeace, who wrote an article published in several newspapers on leaf blowers. "There is no waste in nature, and leaves aren't litter. When we treat leaves like trash, we're tossing out something other species need to survive. Maintaining clean air and water, addressing the looming climate crisis, and protecting other species as well as ourselves should start at a neighborhood level. If we don't encourage community responses to threats to our health and well-being, what hope do we have to take on bigger problems? We have to ask, is there value in the environment we live in, or has a leafless lawn become the new standard of our values?" This proposal for a ban on gas leaf blowers has been shared with and endorsed by Soma Action and the Green Team. A special thanks to our speakers this evening and to Quiet Communities. Thank you. That concludes our presentation. and we would be happy to answer any questions if there is time.
Rachel, thank you. Thank you to you and all the speakers this evening. Really appreciate the narrative. I had a couple of questions, but I wanted to yield to my colleagues first. But I will say, will we get a copy of this presentation?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. All right, I'll now yield the floor to my colleagues.
I think it was extremely thorough, and thank you. But since I'm on the EAC and I've seen it before, I have no questions, Mayor. And if you have a couple, you can probably take that.
Mr. DeLuca or Mr. Daffis or Mr. Limbrick, any questions? I just have a couple. Okay, just so really quick. So essentially the timeline that you put out essentially looks like you're looking for an extension of the ban for 30 days from basically for October. Is that correct, the way I read it?
For this coming year?
Yes, because currently our ban is through 9/30. And so per the timeline, I think you're, let me see.
Yes, yes,
I can.
correct.
Magic of technology here. There you go. So yeah, so per your presentation, you're looking to, we have a 5-month ban, right?
Mhm.
So it starts May 1st and runs through September. You're looking for us to extend the ban 30
Yes.
days. Okay. And then the second part of the timeline, as you know, we currently have it open for 4 months, and you'd want to, for 2022, eliminate any spring use of gas leaf blower bans.
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I was clear on that. And then my last question is, we talked about the health and the hearing of employees. I mean, sorry, the health and hearing especially. Was the data focused solely on if we had a stack rank, is it the employees that work for the landscaping companies, or is it the residents?
So for health, I mean, I don't know if I should take this question, but I'll just I'll just say that for health, I think it's everybody. And if Dr. Strelnick would like to chime in, I'm more than that. And for hearing, the greatest concern is for the workers. The graph did show that at 50 feet, it could be at a level of 85 decibels, which damaged hearing. And Maplewood lots are often only 50 feet wide. So you would have to have 2-hour exposure. And so, it's possible, but the hearing damage is more for the workers. And please, Dr. Rosen and Nelson, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Can you hear me?
Need to be corrected.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, the workers often experience very significant hearing loss and ringing in the ears, and it just becomes commonplace. And by the time they don't have the means to afford to take care of their hearing the way that other people may. And so not only are they exposed to noise, it's going to translate to significant loss down the road. It impacts their job opportunities because they can't hear and communicate.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Awesome. Those are the only questions I had. It was a great presentation. I look forward to diving deeper into it. I had to take a screenshot because I like to have data. So thank you. Does any of my colleagues have any additional questions or no? No. Okay. All right. Rachel, thank you again. Really appreciate it. And to everyone who came to speak tonight, wonderful presentation.
Well, thank you so much for the time. I know you guys are very busy, so we appreciate the time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move on to agenda item number 8, which is our Board of Health meeting. I'll yield the floor to Deputy Mayor Daffis.
Thank you, Mayor. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of New Jersey, 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2021 to the news record News Record, and Star Ledger in December 2020, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk. Roll call.
Adams. Mr. DeLuca.
Sorry,
Ms. Adams.
I'm here. Sorry, my dog was bugging me.
Mr. DeLuca.
Here.
Glenbrick.
Here.
Mayor McGehee.
Here.
Mr. Daffis.
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the Board of Health has a discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public in any meeting. And whereas the Maplewood Board of Health to comply with the provision of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner. Now therefore be resolved by the Maplewood Board of Health of the Township of Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the Board of Health by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observations of the actions and discussions of the Board of Health at all its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second,
Ms. Adams?
yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. I move the approval of the minutes from our April 6th Board of Health meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yeah, you already got all the votes. Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes. Health Officer Davenport, welcome. Good evening. You have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, sir. So let me just share my screen. Okay, can everyone see that? Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Lembrick. All right, so let's start with the presentation for this evening. Let me start with our COVID nursing update. As of April 30th, we've had 1,509 cases in Maplewood. The number of cases for the month of April was 143, which is a great improvement from back in March, which was almost close to 275. Number of hospitalizations for the month of April was 4, similar to March. But unfortunately, our number of deaths in April was, we had 2 additional deaths, including a 40-year-old and a 70-year-old, which brings our total of deaths in Maplewood to 36. Because we want to keep vigilant on the testing, we have extended the New Jersey COVID team, or Salerno Medical, to continue to provide services of testing and antibody testing at on Springfield Avenue. So please note the new location for the New Jersey COVID team is on 1850 Springfield Avenue, no longer at Yale Corner, but rather in between Top Hat and Tails and Freetown Kitchen. The hours are still the same, from Monday to Friday, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And walk-ins are welcome. You can also schedule on NewJerseyCOVIDteam.com. For additional testing options, we also recommend people to go to EssexCovid.org, where they are seeing everyone, including walk-ins for vaccinations now at 2 locations. And testing is always still available and free and drive-through. Lastly, you can always go to covid19.nj.gov for locations for testing and vaccinations throughout the state. To give you some context of where we are with our numbers, vaccine doses administered in New Jersey is on the first column. So that's doses for all New Jerseyans. So as you can see, 7,493,209 doses have been administered. But fully vaccinated, we are up to 3,268,958 cases. The New Jersey goal, as per Governor Murphy, is to get to 4.7 million fully vaccinated by June 30th. So we have a ways to go, but we are getting there, and we are making progress. To bring it even to more clear focus, in Essex County, 43% of people in Essex County have received at least 1 dose, of the vaccine. And 24% of people in Essex County are fully vaccinated. So what we need to get to is herd immunity, which is reached between 70 to 80% of the community. So as of yet, we are at 24% in Essex County. So we still have a ways to go. But once those 43% of people who've gotten at least their first dose have gotten their second dose, we will be closer to that herd immunity timeframe. And so we really need to encourage people to please go and get your second dose. And we still have to make an effort to get more people vaccinated. Please also note that the statewide transmission rate of transmission is currently 0.37. Remember that we want the rate of transmission to be less than 1. So we are moving in the right direction, and vaccination helps. I also want to bring to your attention this screen. The blue to the upper left is by age group. The beige dark green is by gender, and the one below it is by race and ethnicity. What I want to bring to your attention is the age group. You'll notice that the 16 to 17-year-olds is at 1% with that dark green. That is because of the new Pfizer expansion and eligibility of the new Pfizer vaccine for that age group of 16 to 17-year-olds. You will see that increase over time as we move into May and June. Likewise, some other good points of news is that in the upcoming week or so, they will be approving Pfizer for 12 to 15-year-olds. So that under 16, which is currently 0%, will soon be increasing as well. So we will be spreading the eligibility and increasing our vaccination coverage in our community. So that's really great. So I just want to bring that to your attention. Also, by race and ethnicity, you'll see that our numbers, this is Essex County, by the way, I should preface that. This is all information for Essex County. You'll notice that for Essex County, our numbers are increasing for everyone across the board, but we still have more to go in terms of vaccination. Let me just go into a little explanation of vaccinations versus COVID variants. As I've mentioned before in previous and prior presentations, we are racing against time between getting the increasing herd immunity and getting everyone vaccinated versus allowing exposure of our community to COVID variants to come in. Essentially, anyone who is unvaccinated is still susceptible to getting COVID and unfortunately acquiring a COVID variant, which they can bring back to our community and to their household. So the more people who are unvaccinated and the longer we delay herd immunity, the more vulnerable we are as a whole to COVID variants exposing in our community. The more people who are vaccinated, the more our community is protected. So I can't emphasize enough that we really need to increase our herd immunity so that we protect ourselves from COVID, but also the COVID variants, which are known to spread more widely, can cause more disease and illness, more severe illness, is what we've seen in other places. So on that note, we are trying to increase the number of people who are getting vaccinated and informing them with a Canvas initiative. So we are doing a community Canvas initiative. Thank you to the Township Committee for doing this Saturday, May 8th, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. If you are interested to canvas in Maplewood, we're going to the neighborhoods to encourage people and make them aware that they are eligible for the vaccine and where and how they can register. Again, walk-ins are available at many of the county location facilities, so we encourage people to get vaccinated. Just give our office a call. You can call my colleague Talia Jeffers in our office by Thursday, May 6th, because we're trying to organize the amount of volunteers that we have. And I think it'll be a great day and a really important initiative and really getting out into the community. So we look forward to seeing everybody there. I just want to highlight some of the new and increasing expansions and liftings of bans and restrictions that the governor has had. So I just want to highlight a few things. One is this Friday, outdoor gathering limits will increase to 500 people, as well as outdoor capacity limits will increase to 50% capacity. Maximum capacity for certain indoor activities and gatherings will also increase. For more detailed information, you can go to covid19.nj.gov. But I just wanted to highlight that things are opening up. In comparison, we have May 19th. Let me just decrease this for a second. May 19th, we can see that much more is being expanded. In fact, general indoor gathering limits will increase to 50 people, and the outdoor gathering limit as of May 19th will be removed. Now, this is all pending that we still stay in the moderate level, which is where we have achieved this week. We are all in the moderate level. The whole state is no longer in a high Cali score. So as long as the numbers still keep going down statewide, we will continue to move forward with the following liftings of restrictions. As you can see, more indoor and outdoor capacity limits in different places like businesses and houses of worship will be removed. And indoor catering events for wedding receptions and proms will increase to 100%, but no more than 250 individuals. And capacity at large indoor venues will increase to 30% for those who can fit 1,000 people. So this is really good news as long as we continue to follow face mask wearing guidelines as well as social distancing guidelines. These are two basic lines of defense, right? And then getting vaccinated is our best line of offense here. Moving off of COVID, I just want to mention some upcoming events. The summer meals program will come again. This is our third year and we're very proud of it, working with the Township of Irvington. June 28th to August 20th at the Maple Crest Park gazebo next to the Hilton Branch Library. This is a switch from our prior location, which was further deeper in by Boyden Parkway South and Essex Road. So now we're going to be more visible on Springfield Avenue. Hopefully they'll make it easier for families and young kids to find us and see us there, thereby increasing more kids who get breakfast and lunch Monday to Friday on June 20th to August 20th. I just want to say a big thank you to the Soma School District and the Board of Ed and Dr. Taylor. They have passed a resolution to provide Maplewood with the funding to make this summer meals program happen. I would just like to bring your attention to the resolutions, the two resolutions that are up for tonight, to one, approve the summer meals program to occur, as well as to hire the coordinator, Mr. Marcel McNeil, who runs the program every year. Marcel and I have been in contact with each other recently, and he says that people are already coming up to him around Maple Crest Park where he lives and walks around daily. And people are saying, when is it coming back? We can't wait to see everyone. So it's really been a great community event that people are growing to know about, rely upon, and it's been essential during this time of COVID. So thank you to the Township Committee for that. Lastly, I just want to mention environmental health. This might look like my slide from last time regarding responsible pet ownership, but I do want to mention that we had a report of one dog bite, unfortunately, in April and one in May. What I want to emphasize here is that these incidents are preventable. So I just want the message to go out to the community to please license your dogs and cats with the township annually. Licensure ensures that everyone is up to date with their rabies. So when these incidences occur, we know at least that if a dog is licensed, they have up-to-date rabies, and that alleviates the fear and the concern and the worry that someone might be exposed to rabies. Finally, keep your dogs on a leash at all times. Our public spaces, including our parks, are not dog runs. In fact, in South Orange, our neighboring town, their parks do not allow people to walk their dog, even on leash, throughout the park system. And what we don't want to do is have to do something like that, because I think we can enjoy the parks safely by following these basic rules of engagement and not having dogs run loose in the park. No matter how much you think your dog is a friendly dog, some people may not like dogs approaching them. And we just never know what might trigger any kind of animal. So please keep your dogs on a leash at all times. And that, I believe, is the end of my presentation. So I'll open it up to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Health Officer Davenport. As always, thorough and thoughtful. I do have one follow-up question regarding the homebound vaccinations. Is there a status update on that?
Thank you so much. I meant to put it with my mentioning of the testing site. So yes, thank you to New Jersey COVID team Salerno Medical. They were able to provide us the ability to go to 23 homebound residents. So that is a really great thing. That was a Moderna vaccine, so they received their first dose, and they'll receive their second dose May 19th and 20th. So by the end of this month, we will have some really happy families that have their residents, their families homebound vaccinated. They're very, very thankful to the township for doing this. Oh, I also should mention that we have a few stragglers who have called us to say, oh, you know, I've heard about your homebound program. Can you vaccinate us again? And it turns out that our friend, the pharmacist Sashi Jondapati at the Town and Country Pharmacy on Irvington Avenue, we called him up and we said, Sashi, can you vaccinate some homebound? We just have like 3 or 4. And he wrote us back immediately and said, absolutely. So he will do that for us. He has the Moderna and the J&J. So that's a huge, great thing that we have in our community, this relationship we have with our local pharmacists. So we're making it happen for our families.
That's terrific. Thank you for the update. Sashi is incredible. What a great guy. Is there an update with respect to the senior transport partnership that we have with the county for those older adults who need transportation to a vaccination site?
Right. So unfortunately, that was run by the county. And because they had such a low turnout throughout the county, they decided to stop that program. As you know, that they are slowly dismantling all of the county large-scale facilities as we move toward more vaccination sites available in other areas. So that one they had to close down. But we do have, other places where people can go. They can walk up to that COVID-19 website tells you other places where you can go and get scheduled for both 16 and over, 18 and over, any age group you want. And also Sashi Jondapati at Town and Country Pharmacy also is offering vaccinations. And the county's always telling us about places that are offering vaccinations, not just to their residents, but it's open to all Field and Newark. So we're sending information out weekly whenever we find it.
That's terrific. So at this point, I'm going to open up. Oh, I have one more thing. It's not a question. For the public's edification, we have received, as I know you have, Health Officer Davenport, some emails and requests for further information from residents asking about Maplewood specific vaccination performance thus far. And we just want to let the public know that the governor announced yesterday a forthcoming, comprehensive, and well-coordinated initiative to provide, among other things, this is an initiative to drive up vaccinations to get to that 4.7 million residents fully vaccinated by the end of June. This initiative will also share that level of data by municipality to local leaders and local public health offices so that we can join and do our part in ramping up vaccinations, which of course we're already doing starting this Saturday with our canvassing effort, which you talked about. So that's great. At this point, I open up the floor to my colleagues for any questions, comments, concerns. I don't see anyone. Everyone still seems awake. Mr. Waltz, do we have any questions from the public?
At this time, Deputy, oh, yes, I do. Give me one sec here. Okay. First up, I have a Julie Colehouse. Glenn's going to transfer you over to the panelist side, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Just to be clear, we want to make sure this is for Board of Health and not for public comment.
Oops, I'm sorry. My mistake.
Thank you, Nancy. Mr. Waltz, let's do it one more time. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the Board of Health?
I do not see anyone, Deputy Mayor, at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Waltz. Okay, I think with that, we will adjourn. I move that we adjourn tonight's Board of Health meeting and regroup again on June 1st.
Second.
All right.
Ms. Fritzen?
Sorry about that. Ms. Adams?
Yes.
DeLuca?
Yes.
Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGeehee?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Mayor, the Zoom is yours again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Candace.
Davenport.
And thank you to Nurse Davenport and her wonderful team for keeping us updated on all things related to COVID and all things related to our public health. I will now move on to agenda item number 9, which is public comment on agenda items only. Limit 3 minutes. I know we have one person who's ready to go. So Mr. Waltz, if you want to go ahead and start the process, we're ready to go.
Yes, sir, Mayor. Okay, so let's see here. Glenn is going to transfer you all over to panelists so we can make sure that you can be seen. First up, I have Joy Yagged. You have 3 minutes.
Hello. Hi, I'm Joy Yagged, 76 Oakview Avenue. I wanted to talk about the leaf blower ban. So yes, I'm one of those people who lives next to somebody who has 3 leaf blowers going at once, making sure they clean every single speck. The noise is deafening. When I speak to my neighbors, they sit there and they say, well, it's only 15 minutes, but it's 15 minutes closer to 20, all 3 going at once. And then once they're done on that side, they move to the other side and then they move over there. So it's constant. So I am very much for banning gas leaf blowers. I also run a gardening group on Facebook. We want to try to encourage more environmentally friendly behavior. When you remove all the leaves, you're removing the good bugs, the solitary pollinators. You're also removing the topsoil. So this is all very damaging to the environment. And lastly, you stir up the dust, fecal matter, lead paint chip dust, you name it, whatever's in the soil gets just airborne and complete. And I can't, if I don't forget, if it's a nice day and I don't forget to close all the windows when I hear them, there's this wonderful fine layer of black dust that comes inside and coats everywhere near the window. So I am very much for my own sanity, for my hearing, for the health and safety of the people using the machines. I am for banning gas blowers. And thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor. Next up, we have a Miss Julie Colehouse. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, hello. I'm from the Chathams, but I'm here in support of the gas-powered ban. The reality is that the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection back in 2005 did a workshop in which they tested the emissions on non-automotive engines, all small engines, 2 and 4 stroke, motor engines, construction equipment, and gas leaf blowers and other equipment. And not surprisingly, discovered that the high levels of pollution were being generated by lawn and garden equipment, especially the 2-stroke engines. And they recommended by 2006 to replace commercial and residential gas landscape equipment with cleaner equipment, to purchase clean equipment by state agencies, to recognize programs for clean landscaping operations, to restrict the use of gas equipment on high ozone and particle pollution matter days, and to increase public education on sustainable landscape maintenance practices. That was 2006. By 2012, the New Jersey Clean Air Council had filed more recommendations that they produce a lawnmower voucher and exchange program where individuals could turn in their old gas equipment and get electric, as well as to encourage commercial businesses to retrofit or replace their current equipment with propane. At that time, propane was considered the clean energy technology. Now we have electric, and the electric motors do not have the low energy component that makes it so loud that the gas leaf blowers have that penetrates the walls and windows. That's why electric is so much quieter. It doesn't do that. That component is absolutely missing. In addition, it's zero emissions. I don't see any other better way for us to promote the New Jersey Energy Master Plan, which wants 50% clean energy by 2030, 100% by 2050. So we have to recognize that not only cars, but localized sources of air pollution coming from construction equipment, motorboats, landscaping equipment, all of that is an old technology that will eventually be transitioned to electric and maybe beyond, whatever the next clean energy is. But as someone had mentioned before in Rachel's presentation, which was excellent, by the way, this is inevitable, and it's far better for us to do this in a cost-effective way, following the recommendations of a plan by the state that has, it's there. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to study it anymore. We need to just implement it. And to do so now cost effectively with the equipment as the
30
landscape
seconds.
pointed out. That's it. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kohlhaas, and also thank you to Ms. Yaget previously.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, next up we have Regina Eckert. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So I'm here to voice my support to expand the ban of gas-powered leaf blowers in Maplewood. We already know they are a public health hazard to our community and to those who operate them. They produce unsafe noise levels and damage to the environment, but you've all heard the facts. We had an amazing presentation by a number of folks earlier in this meeting, so I'm not going to repeat them. Frankly, I also don't, I can't say them with my lack of expertise. I'm just simply asking you to take action to phase out the use of gas-powered leaf blowers. I have 2 young children. I am greatly concerned about the world that they are growing up in and will live in past my days. Now, this kind of expands. It's not just about gas-powered leaf blowers. It's kind of just a bigger umbrella of living a more sustainable and greener lifestyle. And I think kind of parallel to that, this is just one small but really impactful way that we can start to adopt quieter, healthier, and greener approaches to property maintenance that will benefit residents, workers, business owners, as well as the environment. So that's all I have, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Eckert.
Okay, Mayor, next up we have Sheila Baker Goodall. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Sheila Baker Gujral. I sit on the Maplewood Environmental Advisory Committee, and I'm the co-chair of the Essex County Environmental Commission. And I am the Resource Center Director at the Association of New Jersey Environmental Commissions. I'd like to first say that I support this year-round ban on gas leaf blowers along with my colleagues on the EAC. And I'd also like to thank my fellow committee members, Rachel and Jonathan, for making this argument so convincingly to ban gas leaf blowers in Maplewood. I really appreciate the work that they've done in drilling down to the health and environmental impacts. The health hazards, the noise pollution, and the environmental damage have all been so much more clear once we've all had to stay home. On behalf of the Association of New Jersey Environmental Commissions, I would like to say that ANJEC supports the Maplewood Environmental Advisory Committee's work and their recommendation for a year-round ban initiative. I would also like to express our thanks to Maplewood for leading the way on this challenging issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chigo.
Okay, Mayor, next up we have Rujan Shen. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, everyone. I'm not sure why my camera is not working, but here I am. So my name is Ruching Shen. I am a Maplewood resident. I'm here to also voice my support for extending the ban on gas-powered leaf blowers to year-round. I share Regina's concern about what kind of world we're leaving to our children. But it was also very encouraging to hear from folks like Joy on her group's desire to help promote greener, more sustainable gardening practices. I was going to show this on my screen, but my camera is not working for some reason. So I got this Home Eco Gold. It's a really nice little 8-page pamphlet from South Orange Green Team, actually. It has lots of really, really handy and practical tips on how to keep anything from keep our river clean and healthy to how to compost, how to conserve water and energy, and also maintain a healthier yard. I think Maplewood could also do something like this, probably even better, I think. So I'm in full support of folks around the town, from Township committee members to gardening groups and average residents like me, trying to not only just banning a gas-powered leaf blower, but also try to have a more holistic view of how we should treat our gardens and yards. And I think this is the least we can do as residents today to try to help combat climate change on this planet. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Chen.
Next up, Mayor, Dan Segal. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. I want to address the issue of the ban on gas-powered leaf blowers as well. I believe this issue has serious implications as described earlier in the excellent presentation. The Township Committee has decided that the harm from leaf blowers is worth preventing during the period May to September. So my question is, why is that same harm not worth preventing in March and April and during the fall months when the usage of leaf blowers increases dramatically? The harm is in fact even worse during the fall due to the widespread usage of gas-powered leaf blowers. It seems unnecessary to remind you that we use our lungs all year long, and the ban on gas-powered leaf blowers must also be year-round. I would advocate that this be done immediately. All other ordinances that regulate businesses for the benefit of the public are in effect year-round. In addition, the Township Committee, this was mentioned earlier, needs to educate residents about the importance of this issue and suggest best practices. My question is, does the Township Committee agree that it has a role at the local level to address the climate emergency and to do so with real meaningful action? I respectfully suggest that the Township Committee think about its legacy and whether you will knowingly enable serious harm to residents and workers, or whether you will be known as a Township Committee that addressed a serious issue brought to their attention by residents, and whether you will follow the lead of Committeewoman Nancy Adams and the Environmental Advisory Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Segal.
Okay, Mayor, next up, we have Ellen Archer. You have 3 minutes.
I'm not even camera ready, but I'm going to do this anyway. I wanted to thank everybody, all this town officials, so much for your leadership during the COVID crisis and the robust push to get our residents vaccinated. I had my 2 doses at Sears, and I had the pleasure of being cheered on by Dean Daffis with an elbow bump each time. That was awesome. So I wanted to thank Rachel, Jonathan, Dan, and the medical experts for their excellent presentation. I absolutely love science, and their truth-telling was profoundly sobering. I'm speaking out, of course, in support of the ban of leaf blowers in Maplewood. The arguments you've heard so far tonight about the harm to our environment, the health and safety risks to landscapers, the impact on air quality and our quality of life and our health and safety are very real and very compelling. I can speak to the quality of life on my street, where there are often different landscaping companies working up and down the street with 2 to 3 leaf blowers going at once, and we rush inside and try to shut down our windows in an attempt to ward off unpleasant fumes and all the noise and the particulates that make their way inside anyway. We often get stomach aches and feel unwell for hours afterwards. We're sneezing. My throat hurts. These are really very real reactions to what's being blown around by these, sort of these unbelievably powerful blowers. And I feel horrible for the workers who I see without masks and ear protection. I cannot imagine how they feel at the end of the day, much less for the coming years of their lives. So yes, I am for a complete ban on leaf blowers, and I too would love for it to be immediate. I know how these things work though, so I'm reasonable, but wouldn't that be cool if it was right away? I think that would be such an enormous improvement on the quality of life and a gift to ourselves and the land and creatures we share the planet with. Homeowners, they'll adjust. And we as a community will find ourselves on the right side of the paramount issue, which is saving our planet and doing our part to educate and make effective change that reflects Maplewood's value. Even the town name, Maple and Wood, their Maplewood's values of looking out for others, especially
30
those who
seconds.
are most vulnerable, caring for the earth, and creating a legacy of commitment to the sustainability for those who come after us long after we're in the ground ourselves. So hopefully in just pine coffins so we can, whatever, compost. Thank you so much. It's late and I'm, a little slap happy. Thank you guys. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Ms. Archer. Congratulations on being fully vaccinated.
Okay, Mayor, next up, Rona Questel. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, I just wanted to share just a small personal experience that I had the weekend before last. I was out in my garden trying to clean up a little bit and just figure out where I was going to plant new things. And my neighbor hires a guy personally, like not through some landscaping service, there's no identifiable truck, to do some work for her. And he was out there with the gas powered leaf blower you could see the gas sloshing around in the backpack, on his back. And literally within 1 minute of him turning that thing on, became immediately evident that there was no way I could remain outside while he was doing that. It's really not even the noise at that point. The smell of those fumes, I was at least 40 feet away from him. I was at the front of my house. He was all the way at the back of their driveway. Was unbearable, just unbearable. And so I just walked over there and I let him know that as long as he was working, I could not do my work. If he did what he was doing, then I could not do what I wanted to do. And to his credit, he stopped and found some other way or something else to do. But it's just not a sustainable practice. It's awful. And I became immediately nauseous and I had to go inside and close the door. I did want to also just mention, for anyone that was interested, I can't remember who mentioned that little home eco guide booklet. It came today in the Matters magazine. So when you get your Matters magazine, hopefully everybody got one. It should just fall out of that. It was tucked into that in today's mail. And just one other little tidbit that I happened to I just got my second vaccination today at the Sears in the Livingston Mall. And I was told by the sheriff there that site is going to be concluding, I think he said on May 28th. So after that, I guess people will be going to other locations, but that was one piece of information that I had. And I think that's it. I appreciate, I just want to say one more thing. I agree with Dan, who suggested that, and the woman who just spoke, that if we can, anything that we can do to speed up the timeline of implementing the ban, I think is just hugely valuable. It is just a tremendous scourge. And I don't know anybody that likes it. And I think a lot of homeowners just don't think about the fact that there are other options here. A lot of new people, people who come and say, oh, I'm new to gardening, I'm new to Maplewood,
30 seconds.
Whatever, that they just don't know better. And everything that we can do to educate them that there are better options, leave the leaves and all of those kind of things, that this leaf blowing mania just does not need to continue. So I hope that we can speed up the process and implement the ban. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Cristal. And then also just for the public, it is true that the Sears Livingston Mall is closing at the end of the month, but the county has announced that they'll still have 2 locations, the Kmart in West Orange, as well as Essex County College in Newark. So those will continue, inclusive of walk-in appointments. So just know that the county will continue their vaccination process as we are continuing to try to get to that herd, that herd immunity. So we have to continue to get out there. For those who are signed up for second shots through the rest of the month at the Livingston Mall, please go and get that done. So thank you.
Okay, Mayor, next up we have Veda Truesdale. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, I am chiming in to voice my support for the gas-powered leaf blower ban. The other speakers have really spoken about the why in terms of the health impacts. I did want to add, because I didn't hear anyone mention this, there is evidence that the noise, that specific noise from gas-powered leaf blowers is correlated with elevated blood pressure and chronic hypertension. And at during peak season, when those things are going all day, that's also a serious health risk to anyone who's within earshot, particularly if they're, prone to blood pressure issues. It's an antiquated technology. There's no reason to have it. I've worked in environmental policy for years. I know that we always get pushback when we make the laws stricter, and then it happens and everything's okay and we all move on. So I don't think there's any reason for us to stick with this antiquated, harmful technology. The other thing I wanted to add, which I mentioned in the chat, is that a temporary ban is confusing, and it's extremely frustrating for me as a homeowner who really supports the ban, because it gets violated, and it gets violated constantly. And I feel like I'm a vigilante trying to get it enforced. So, I go out, I tell the landscapers down the street, by the way, you're not allowed to be doing that anymore. And they say, okay. And then they ignore me and keep going. They show up the next week and they do the same thing. I'm taking pictures to submit so I can file a complaint. And some of those individuals have been cited, but it's a huge burden on me. And I think it's just incredibly confusing. Today, I went out and spoke to 2 separate landscapers who were using leaf blowers, and both of them claimed to have no idea that there was a ban in place. There's also some confusion about the mosquito squad. And I know that the updated ordinance addresses that kind of usage explicitly, but I don't think it's translating into comprehension. So I think it's far better to have an across the board, you can't use it. And then that way there's no ambiguity about whether the ban starts on the 1st or the 15th or ends on the 1st or the 30th. Just get rid of it. So that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Truesdale.
Okay, Mayor, next up, Tracy Woods. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Tracy Woods at 253 Burnett Avenue in Maplewood, and I am coming on to support to voice my support for the leaf blower ordinance or proposal, and also to say that I personally agree with the folks that have said that they think a shorter timeline to a full year-round restriction is a good idea. I agree with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Woods.
Okay, Mayor, that's all I have for public comment.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Walsh. Appreciate your efforts there. Okay, we'll now close our public comment agenda items only and move on to agenda item number 10. We have an ordinance on final.
Yes, Mayor, ordinance on final passage, ordinance number 3026-21 is an ordinance to amend chapter 257 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Vehicles and Traffic. This ordinance will add Hillcrest Road to this list of streets where parking within 5 feet of a public or private driveway is prohibited.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Would anyone in the public like to speak on this ordinance?
There is no one, Mayor.
No one? Thank you. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. May I get a motion, Mr. DeLuca?
I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Dathis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We'll now move on to our ordinances on introduction. We have agenda item number 11.
Yes, Mayor. Introduction of a new ordinance, ordinance number 3027-21 is an ordinance to amend Chapter 6 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Administration of Government. This ordinance will establish the terms and procedures for the off-duty employment of Maplewood police officers.
Can I get a motion, Mr. DeLuca?
I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and the hearing to be held on May 18th, 2021.
Second.
Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Dathis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Lembrecht,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We have another ordinance on introduction.
Yes, Mayor, ordinance number 3028-21 is an ordinance to amend chapter 193 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Parks and Recreation Areas. This ordinance will adjust the hours that Maple Crest Park will be open to be consistent with the other parks within the township, and will also adjust certain uses within Memorial Park.
Can I get a motion, Ms. Adams?
Yes, Mayor, I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on May 18th.
Second.
Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrecht?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We have our third introduction of a new ordinance.
Yes, Mayor, introduction of a new ordinance, ordinance number 3029-21. Ordinance, Township of Maplewood, calendar year 2021 ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank. NJSA 48-4-45.14.
Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. I'll move it myself. I move the passage of this ordinance on its first reading, publication according to the law in Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on May 18th.
Second.
Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrecht?
Yep. Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We're now on agenda item number 15, which is our 2021 municipal budget. We'll first start with agenda item number 16, which will be a statement by the finance chair and then also reports from our staff. So good evening. I want to thank our CFO, Joe Kaloje, and his team, our township administrator, Jerry Jimes, our assistant township administrator, Glenn Michalowski, our former interim administrator, Greg Schuster, as well as our township department heads who started this financial exercise way back in October of 2020. I also want to recognize Deputy Mayor Dean Daffis, who is also a member of the Finance Committee, and my colleagues, Ms. Adams, Mr. DeLuca, and Mr. Lembrecht, who spent several Saturdays and many hours with us coming through to discuss this budget, which we will present tonight. Collectively, our days have been elongated by the time spent to address many of the challenges that were laid in front of us in 2021. 2020 was an unprecedented year for the Township of Maplewood, led by the fact that coming into this year, we had to realize losses over $2 million in revenue. This was an overwhelming driver of this year's rate, as that loss of miscellaneous revenue in 2020 represents a 0.05 rate increase. Also, we finalized union contract renewals with key departments such as the police, PBA, and fire. We also needed to address how we policed in our community in regards to social worker services and resources to prevent some of the horrific events that have occurred in our country when these social service resources are not available. We are also now directly facing a fact that we live in an economic climate where now it costs more money than ever for us to recycle and work towards sustainability. Finally, we also faced and had to address an infrastructure from our sewers that have reached their life expectancy to public works equipment that has also exceeded its life expectancy to the point that we've had several breakdowns during our snowstorms this past year, costing us time and money to provide the services which are expected in our community. All of these factors are part of the narrative of this budget. That said, with these challenging issues, we have thoughtfully made adjustments from eliminating costs related to jitney operations and significant reductions in staffing, salary and wages expenses related to crossing guards, engineering, cultural affairs, departmental personal requests. And based on the COVID-19 special emergency notes approved by us, the Township Committee, we were able to increase our revenue by $600,000. In addition, the revenue loss was addressed by the issuance of a $2 million special emergency note that was executed internally at 0% interest, avoiding any interest cost in the 2021 budget. So after these surgical cuts and these thoughtful decisions, we were able to reduce our initial tax rate from 0.891 to 0.883. We understand that we represent 25% of the tax rate, but we take that percent very seriously. When you look at our budget here, as I'm sharing my screen, you can see what we represent in terms of your tax dollar. But that being said, there are significant costs related to that 25%. And our costs are broken down as follows: salary and wages, fixed costs, and other expenses. And when you look at our salary and wages, a significant amount of the costs that we incur come from our police and fire and public works. Those are our top three departments that really drive the services that we all expect here in our community. We also have fixed costs that we must deal with: insurance, statutory expenses, and debt service. These are expenses that are part of running a day-to-day operation of a township, and also align with the services which you expect when you're living in Maplewood. And then finally, other expenses broken out by departments. As you can see, we have a significant increase in public works, and this is attributed to all the efforts that go to making sure that our roads are clean, that our roads are paved, and that everything happens in a seamless process for you, the resident and residents of Maplewood. So finally, when we talk about making changes to the budget, we all agree. For several years, we raised our rate by 2%. This model was not sustainable. And thank you again to our CFO, Joe Koloje, who came in and took the reins and started to do the work to establish a new mindset. And as a result, in 2019, we took a hit and saw our tax increase to 6.53% just 2 years ago. Last year, we chose to reduce the tax rate by 0.01 in an effort to provide property tax relief to our residents during uncertain economic times with the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic. This decision that we made essentially created a deferred charge that was required to be addressed in the 2021 budget. So basically, we are funding not just 2021, but part of 2020 as well. With no pandemic in 2020, our 2021 budget would have been a zero increase in the rate. The following tables show the recap of the budget here. So where do we go from here? The answer lies in multi-year budgeting. And under the leadership of our new Township Administrator, Jerry Jimes, and our CFO, Joe Koloje, we'll move forward with this model, which will provide a balance of thoughtful rate increases, but yet maintaining the level of services which a community like Maplewood is accustomed to. Thank you for your time. And now I yield the floor to our Township Administrator, Jerry Jimes.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll be brief to turn it over to Joe, and at the risk of repeating a lot of what you said, I won't do, which many of which were in my notes as well. But I definitely concur with the thank yous you gave to all the stakeholders that were involved, in this budget process. Normally when I give a budget presentation, I start off by saying preparing a budget is hard, and we all know that. But preparing a budget in the middle of a pandemic, when you're taking $2 million, when you're losing $2 million in revenue, is doubly and triply hard. But there was a lot of good work done with this finance committee, with the township committee as a whole. My predecessor in the seat, along with Joe before my arrival. A budget represents the values of the community. It promotes the community, and it has to show a forward-thinking nature that sets forth a path to financial sustainability. I can say with confidence, based on the work that was done here prior to me and the work that's been done since, this budget does just that. It represents the values that you want to put forth, when you go out and have to, promote this to your residents, to the residents of this community. And I think when all is said and done, as we prepare for the future and we look towards the future, that's going to bear out, and that's going to hold to be true. We've invested a lot in this community in terms of capital projects and operating expenses, where we know that the people are going to want and the people are going to see tangible results. So I would say going forward, I'm satisfied with the product that was put forth in front of you today, and I'm grateful for the work that everybody's done, and the thoughtfulness that have gone into this process. So with that, I'm going to just pass it off to Joe, who may want to talk about some of the more data-driven information in this budget.
Thank you, Mr. Giles. Mayor, it's a great presentation, Mayor. So I think what I'm going to do is, and I did the same thing that you did and created some visual aid. I just want to basically talk about the actual difficulties and challenges that we were facing with this particular budget year. We'll start out with kind of recapping some of the issues that we had in regards to just how much of a hole we started out in because of the pandemic. We had nearly $500,000 in contractual increases to our union. We had nearly $500,000 in pension obligations. We picked up $130,000 in disposal costs for recycling, which amounts to $1.1 million on our appropriations side. But what really put us between the rock and the hard, proverbial rock and the hard place, was the loss of miscellaneous revenues. Almost $1.8 million in other revenue streams was lost this year. Special revenue, which is essentially tools in our toolkit, was down almost $250,000. And between the building department and our shared services, we saw a loss of another $100,000, bringing us to $2 million in lost revenue. All said and done, we started out this process $3.1 million in the hole. This gives us an idea of what the budget looks like compared to 2020 and 2021. And as you can see, for the most part, it is pretty much an identical budget. We went up 1% in salary and wages. We actually, to try and offset that, went down 2% in other expenses. Pensions obviously went up. Everything else pretty much remained flat. This kind of gives us an idea of where we were moving from an appropriations perspective over the last 4 years. And we can see that due to contractual obligations, salary and wages have steadily increased. We can also see that on the other expenses side, that we have tried to respond with that by reducing other expenses. And in this particular year, we can see that it's a significant drop. Our statutory expenses, which is something that we can't do anything about, it's handed to us. We can see that pensions has taken a spike this year. We can also see that our debt service has also increased this year. The revenue side, again, is the real driver behind this. We can see in 2018, we used a significant, almost $3.3 million in fund balance. Laymen call it surplus. CFOs hate that word and prefer to call it fund balance. But we have never been able to regain the replenishment of fund balance since that 2018 year. And you can see that steadily we've been using roughly 50%, almost 60% of our fund balance in order to help try and hold the tax levy down. Delinquent taxes are a product of our collection rate, and you can see that we've been fairly steady in terms of that revenue. It's the anticipated revenues, the miscellaneous revenues on the other side of the page that you can see where we really got hurt. I think what's noteworthy here is state aid has remained flat straight across 4 years in a row. But you can see the decline in building. You can see the decline in shared services. You can see the ups and downs that come from grants. And again, our most significant loss this year in revenue has been from our other revenue streams. These two sides basically show the tax levy rate on the right-hand side. That is, of course, relatively constant because it's a third of a mil based on our assessed value. So unless we're growing in ratables, that line's pretty much going to stay flat. The top line shows our tax levy and the increases that we've had to put into place in order to maintain the services that our residents have come to expect. Down at the bottom is our capital improvement fund. You can see that in 2020 and 2021, we have made some significant investments, as the mayor pointed out, in our infrastructure. And then the top line is our reserve for uncollected taxes. This again is one of the tools in our toolkit. It's one of the reasons why we are going to have a resolution later on this evening to adopt. Typically, our bond agency ratings prefer to see these higher numbers. The valleys that you see in that line are basically us putting it down to the bare statutory minimum in order to try and hold down the tax levy. It should be noted that anytime we do that, it is us taking a gamble, and certainly in 2020 we left it higher because we weren't really sure what the pandemic was going to do in terms of our tax collection rate. So again, we're looking at a budget from 2020 to 2021, which is actually a reduction in introduced budgets, $333,000 less than what we introduced in 2020. And so naturally the question becomes, well, then why is there a levy increase? And this is the simple explanation. Miscellaneous revenue, the more we have, the more it pushes down and helps us hold down our property taxes. And unfortunately this year, miscellaneous revenue was not there for us because of the pandemic. And our options are either cut services and reduce the appropriations, or to maintain services and increase the tax levy. This revenue analysis just again is showing us just how badly we were hurt in miscellaneous revenue, building department, shared services, and again the toolkit that we use in order to try and plug holes in the budget. And this chart on the right just shows just how steep a decline it was. Mayor already showed this slide, and we'll just finish with this slide here that it explains just how much of your tax dollar is going towards municipal as opposed to the county and the school. And this library and open space is essentially fixed and statutory and remains somewhat unchanged. If there are any questions, be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I think the deputy mayor was wrong about the health department meeting or board of health meeting. I think this is what actually put people to sleep today.
Thank you, Mr. Kolodziej. So at this point, we're at agenda item number 17, which is the introduction of municipal budget. It is a resolution, so I will move it. I move the adoption of resolution number 12621. Is there a second?
Second it.
Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor, a hearing on the budget and tax resolution will be held at the municipal building on June 1st, 2021 at 7:30 p.m., at which time and place discussions relating to the budget and tax resolution for the year 2021 may be presented by taxpayers or other interested persons.
Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Okay, we'll now move on to agenda item 18, reports from departments. Mr. Johns, I'm seeing no one else, so I think we'll skip that agenda item and move on to agenda item number 19, which is administrative reports, and I'll yield the floor to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple brief items. We continue to look at the drainage issues at Maple Crest Park and some of the parks in the area, still awaiting a report from the engineer. So when I have that, I'll make sure everybody gets updated and you'll get a copy of that. We are working on a document that will kind of be put out to the public, but some of the more technical information is going to take a little more time from the engineer. We have as you know, we have an OEM meeting on Thursday where we're going to talk about some of the health issues related to the openings and the state announcements and how that relates to Maplewood and how we're going to handle that. So there'll be some action items and there'll be some public discussion items when that meeting concludes that we'll report on soon thereafter to the public as they need to know. I had a meeting today with the library and the recreation department. The library is in the process of getting their ESOL ESOL grant, English for speakers of other languages. And due to the fact that they usually have those in the library, we're looking to accommodate them in other places throughout the town. So Melissa has been working with the library, and it looks like we're going to be able to accomplish that goal, with the facilities we have. So that grant program, which is a competitive program that we've gotten several years in a row from the Labor and Workforce Development Group, we'll be able to get again this year and make happen. The pool bid came in for the lifeguard services. One bid was received. I believe that's still in legal review at the moment. It looks like all the documents have been received from the bidder. And if Roger of its office, concludes that bid to be fine, we'll work on moving forward with that and discuss it at the next meeting. Lastly, we had a communications committee meeting last week where I did a presentation. I know Mr. DeLuca is going to talk about that a little bit in his report. I'll just say that I'm pretty excited about some of the things we're going to have moving forward that are going to increase the technological and workplace efficiencies in the government, and also help us become more transparent to the public. So with that, I'll defer to the township attorney for his report next, or unless there's any questions on anything I said.
Hearing none, Mr. Desiderio, will yield the floor to you.
Yeah, Mayor, real quick, we try to have as little litigation as possible. That's when we're successful. But I just want to report to you that we did have one piece of litigation involving a massage parlor that was operating on Valley Street, and the matter, we were able to secure a order to show cause to cause them to cease to operate, a restraining order. They subsequently appealed that, and we received an appellate division decision, wherein the appellate division upheld the decision of the lower court. And I think it was important because I have to say that Mr. Rowe, Ms. Davenport's predecessor, did a very effective job with regard to this. He testified, and he was really tenacious in pursuing it. So I'd like to give kudos to him with regard to it. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Desiderio. And yes, Mr. Rowe, if you're watching anywhere, thank you for your service and being very consistent on this.
Did we let him know?
Yes, we absolutely did. I would never have not.
He worked very hard and for the the people in our community. So thank you, Mr. Rowe, if you're watching.
Yeah, that's a great result, Mr. Desiderio. Thank you. And it's tonight I've thought of two great American philosophers, Benjamin Franklin, who said nothing is certain in life but death and taxes, and Elvis Presley, who said nothing in life is guaranteed but hookers and coupe de villes. And between you and Mr. Kaloje, you've proven them right. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert.
Any more questions for Mr. Desiderio? All right, hearing none, thank you, Mr. Desiderio. We'll now hear from our Township Clerk, Ms. Fritzen.
Thanks, Mayor. So the first thing I wanted to report was we have received bids for a plenary retail consumption liquor license that we had put out for bids. The bid opening date was Friday, April 30th at 10 a.m. And some of you may or may not have watched, but we did have a live YouTube for the bid opening. So 2 bids were received. And in this case, we're certainly looking for the highest bid to be received. The minimum bid was $420,000 that the township would consider accepting. So we did get 2 bids. Maplewood Cinemas LLC bidding $490,000. They also had their deposit check for $49,000. So the second bidder was Iron Ore Properties with a bid of $460,100. They also had their 10% deposit of $46,010. So again, in this case, clearly we'll be accepting, would like to accept the highest responsible bidder. And that would be Maplewood Cinemas LLC with a total bid of $490,000. So bids, the document be reviewed and by the township attorney, and we'll be, moving on with the process. We're still waiting to get a number from the state division of ABC. And again, we made great progress, and it would really be incumbent on the township committee to acknowledge tonight at the meeting that you would like to accept the bid of Maplewood Cinemas LLC in the amount of $490,000.
I don't think we can do that, Ms. Fritzen. I think we have to wait for all the clearance from the police and all of the other processes before we do that.
Okay.
It's okay to report on it, but I don't think you can, the committee cannot accept it at this point. That'd be my recommendation.
Okay. So, Mayor, I have another item. Unless there's any questions further regarding the report that I just made of the bids.
Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, I think you can move on to your second item.
Okay, my second item is just to, start the conversation of the upcoming June primary election. And just to make a couple of reports and some updates. Number one, I'm happy to report that we will be utilizing, if you remember, the new machines for this upcoming election. It'll be our first time. Some other towns in Essex County have used them at the past election, but we are going to be across the board new election machines for our June primary. So that's kind of exciting, really exciting. The other thing is Morrow Church, it turns out, was not available to be a polling location for the June primary. So the county reached out to me and asked for a recommendation to move to 2 districts. There's only 2 at Morrow Church, District 7 and 8. It was my recommendation, and I think it was going to be a good one, and maybe we may like it so much we may ask if we could continue that way. But we're going to move to the Woodland, 60 Woodland Road, 7 and 8, and we only have 2 and 17 there. That location and parking can certainly accommodate 4 voting districts. So I think that's great. And I also think anytime we have control over a polling location being a township building, it's much better because we really can make sure everything's up and running in time and all set up. Today, the Maplewood ballot box was unlocked. It's ready to go, ready for use. And that's our new ballot box. That's at 1618 Springfield Avenue. So again, that was installed last week. Today it was unlocked and it's ready to go for voters' use. And finally, there'll be an OEM meeting tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. that we're going to start the conversation on primary election and safety for voters that are going to polls for PPE and all of the things that we've done in the previous 2 elections for cleanliness and safety of our voters. And we will eventually have a complete walkthrough of all the polling locations in the last 2 elections. So that's my report.
Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Any questions from Ms. Fritzen?
Mr. Mayor, 2 questions.
Mr. Lambert.
Ms. Fritzen, first question is it correct that the voter registration deadline for the primary is May 18, 2 weeks from today?
That's correct. And I apologize for not reporting on that, Mr. Lembrick. It's 9 p.m. on Tuesday, May 18th, and the Township Clerk's office in Maplewood will be open straight through from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. that day and manned.
Okay, so members of the public can come in to town hall that day on the 18th to register.
Right, straight through till 9 o'clock, but we'll be putting an email blast out as well.
Okay, and then my other question, Ms. Fritzen, is, and this is something I'm sure we'll also want to include in communications to residents, but given that last year's election were primarily vote by mail, and my understanding is this year's election will be primarily in person, should people be expecting to receive a ballot in the mail, and should people who receive a ballot by mail expect that they should be returning that by mail, or should they expect to go to the polling place? And if they receive the vote by mail and go to the polling place, are they going to be able to vote by regular ballot? Can you talk about that process?
Yes, I sure can. They will not, this is a vote in person election, totally different than what we had in the vote by mail only. So people should not be expecting to get a ballot in the mail for voting. The intention is to go to the polls. If you need an absentee ballot, you are going to have to request one.
That's what I was going to ask too. Do you know if anybody on the state level has considered doing, sending ballots to every resident in New Jersey like they do in Colorado?
I have not heard a thing about that. But again, this is back to whatever the normal election was before we had a strictly vote by mail. And unless you are in the registry where you want a absentee ballot all the time, you will continue to receive that. There's no change there. But in our last election, everybody was mailed a ballot. It will not be the case this time. You need to go to the polls or request one.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fritzen.
You're welcome.
That's all I have.
I think, I know Ms. Adams asked her question. So, Mr. DeLuca, did you have a question?
No.
Is Vic frozen?
No, I had no question.
I'm frozen.
Are you cold, Vic? I think the mayor's frozen.
Yeah. I'm not frozen. I'm moving.
He may
I
be
think I'm
moving too,
frozen.
but we can't see.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm frozen.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I think the mayor's frozen.
I think
so
I was
we-
frozen.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I was frozen. Sorry about that. Vic, did you have a question? No? Okay.
No.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. All right, move on to agenda item number 21, which is discussion items. We'll first hear from Mr. DeLuca.
Thank you. I did want to say to Mr. Kaloje, when we had the earlier discussion, we had about 30 people in the audience. When we got to the budget, it dropped down to 10. So you're right. We did chase people away. I have 5 items I'd like to bring up, and it wouldn't be my report without sharing a screen. So I know Ms. Adams likes this. 3 years ago, we appointed me as the OEM coordinator, the Municipal Emergency Management Coordinator, and it's coming up again for renewal. And I would be interested in being renewed. We do it in June, so unless there's somebody else who wants to step in, I'm willing to do it again. And we would just need to have a resolution on the probably the next meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second Mr. DeLuca's self-nomination of Mr. DeLuca to be our OEM coordinator.
Is there any further discussion? Anyone else who wants to jump in on that? I'm looking at Ms. Adams and Mr. Daffis.
No, I just thought that was really funny.
All right, hearing none, I will have the resolution for next meeting. So
Mr. DeLuca, is it okay if I draft the resolution, or do you want to do it yourself?
No, absolutely, you can do it.
Okay.
We have an old one.
Okay.
I just want to highlight 2 resolutions that are on the agenda tonight in the consent agenda. One is Resolution 13221, which is the Sustainable Essex Alliance, our electric aggregation. It's a $95,000 contract for Smart Power, and that's to do a 5-town campaign to encourage residents to utilize energy efficiency programs. This was always the second part of our electric aggregation program, not just to drive the price down and get cleaner electrical supply, but also to get people to utilize existing energy efficiency programs that are offered by utility companies and the state that really are not being sufficiently utilized across the state. So Smart Power will be working with the individuals in the 5 towns. And this is a pilot. We hope to show that by aggressively going out and recruiting people to utilize these existing programs, we will get higher energy efficiency participation. Second resolution is 12321. And this is, believe it or not, the final phase for the Prospect Street traffic calming program. And once we get that done, we will then try to do a dog and pony show with the Department of Transportation. You know, this was a grant that I wrote that went to the Department of Transportation. They said often these plans are done for municipalities and they sit on a shelf. So what we want to do is to show that we took these plans, we worked the plans, we actually did something with it, and that they need to give us more money for future plans. That's the whole idea. So after we get this done, we'll work with Mr. Kittner in putting together a story about Prospect Street and reaching out to our Department of Transportation liaisons to get them to see what we have done. Just want to report that we had a grand opening set on Springfield Avenue on the 30th with the new Dunkin'. And this Friday, the Apothecarium is opening up. That's the medical marijuana facility. So 2 new additions to Springfield Avenue. And lastly, we had a call today with our FEMA representative. She was in California. We had Mr. Kaloje on, Deputy Chief Ariema, Police Chief Duval, myself, and Mr. Jimes. And we will be submitting a package of expenses that we hope to get reimbursed from FEMA. It's a little more complicated than CARES, but we're going to put it in and see what we can get. The good news is that normally FEMA reimburses at 75%, but for this, it's going to be 100%. So we'll see what we can get back. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. All right, we'll now hear from Mr. Daffis.
Could I just ask a question, Mr. DeLuca? The Apothecarium thing is all filled up. Apparently, there's no reservations left for the opening. Is there something separate for like a ribbon cutting too?
No, those are the ribbon cuttings at 11:50. I think the things you're talking about are the tours.
The tours. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Don't worry, Ms. Adams, we'll get you in.
Yeah. Just show your card.
Exactly. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. This should be easy because we covered a lot. We covered COVID, the phased in new easing of restrictions, May 7 and May 19th. Accordingly, are canvassing this weekend to ramp up vaccinations. The press release from the county that they are phasing out the Livingston site at the end of the month, but the Kmart site and the Essex County College site remains open and accepting walk-ins. We covered homebound vaccinations. Our community fridge, I'm delighted to report that we have it. We're building the shed around it, and we should be able to launch this thing by mid-May in the next couple of weeks. We resolved the electrical connection issues, and I've asked Administrator Jimes and Director Mancuso about putting together a press release, having a fulsome public event for the launch, and reconnecting with our youth groups, MAPSO Youth and YAC, as well as with MEND, our food pantry partners, and the Women's Club in that effort. We want to get some excitement going for this thing and make a public event out of it. With respect to our Cahoots-like model, our crisis intervention in policing and mutual aid effort. We will be reporting, Mr. Lembrick and I will be reporting to the Community Board on Police tomorrow night. Is their meeting Wednesday night, first Wednesday of every month at 7:30, that we will be undertaking a phased-in approach, as we all discussed during our budget. Phasing in one social worker this year and considering another one next year. The next step here is a job description that will come from the subcommittee of the board, and that job description will better inform our internal administrative efforts to make this happen as well. Finance Committee, Mayor, you reported, as did CFO Kaloje. Communications Committee, Mr. DeLuca has a couple things on the discussion agenda. And as Mr. Jimes mentioned, there's some exciting new stuff that we want to do that will further engage our residents and allow us to communicate better and inform our residents about everything that we're doing. I'm excited also to report that our rent leveling board is fully constituted, finally, minus the 2 alternates that we need, although I do think that I have 2 alternates that I will be bringing forth for appointment in the next meeting or 2. Mr. Thompson has returned and has been appointed to chair the committee, and we will be looking at revising our ordinance to make it more user-friendly, if you will, for both tenants so that they can better understand their rights, and for landlords as it relates to the hardship appeal process. It's way too complicated the way it's written right now, and more on that to come shortly. And lastly, through Code Committee, we are going to be working throughout the year, the rest of the year, to better understand the landscape of households who are renters in our community, to see how they're doing and to better inform any policies and or any support that we need to do to better serve them. And that's my report. Oh, actually, excuse me, Mayor, I have one other thing. You see here at the bottom of my list. On Thursday, we will be, the management team committee of the SOMA 2 Towns for All Ages Age Friendly Initiative will be conducting interviews for Kathy Rowe's replacement. That's the final matter of my report.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. We'll now hear from Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few things. One from Recreation and Human Services. There's a lot that we were talking about. One was in the ordinance for park hours, but I'll clarify that when it's on for second reading. The woodland fees, Anna D'Archuleta is looking into trying to make the woodland as an event location in line with our sustainability aspects and our promise to try to be green. So she's looking into purchasing real dishes and all the things that a venue would need for someone who's renting it out. So she's putting that together along with the regular fees that will come before us, hopefully at the next meeting, if not the first meeting in June. We had a kickoff meeting with our consultants for the recycling advisory, the consultant that we got for our joint consulting, if you will, to try to figure out some solutions to our garbage, recycling, leaf collection, and everything we can, and food debris that we can compost. We're trying to figure out how we can make this realistically affordable, because it's not. And so we had our first kickoff meeting on the 27th. We'll be meeting pretty much every couple weeks with the consultant. I'll be emailing Ms. Fritzen and Mr. Jimes for some contact information, because they are going to be reaching out to stakeholders, everything from neighborhood groups to township officials in both towns, and also just providers of services for garbage collection, pickup, and end users, marketers. So they're beginning their process now. And I want to thank the Environmental Advisory Committee for the river cleanup that was really successful. We had a great turnout. One of the benefits of no school is that there was much less garbage in the river. And so but it was still really great to have everybody turn out. So that was a great job. And also I want to thank the Conservancy for helping with that and for turning out as well. Also, the Conservancy had a ribbon cutting for Crabapple Grove, and David Nile, longtime volunteer and in the park in particular, some well-deserved honorarium as he steps back and tries to retire. And just so everyone remembers, in case you didn't hear enough about leaf blowers, the leaf blower ban is in effect starting May 1st. It applies to residents and commercial entities. If you see someone illegally using one and you don't want to confront them directly, which is not advised, as we heard from one of the residents, you can take a picture of the use with your phone and email through our website on SDL. You can submit photo, which is time-stamped, and the name of the company and the address that the use was happening and the date. And our code enforcement will follow up with that. I think that's everything I have, I think. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. We'll now hear from.
I'm sorry, Mayor, can I ask Ms. Adams a question on the woodland fees and the Bergdorf fees? We are getting requests for more use. Is it possible? I know the sustainability, the dishes and stuff are it's tough to work out. Is it possible we could push the fees through and then go in and change them, because we're booking things at the old rates, so we need to use those new rates?
Yeah, that's fair. I think we can do that. So I can email what Anna last submitted to our committee to the rest of you, and also to Roger, to get that ordinance updated with at least those prices. Sound good? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lindbergh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a number of items, but all of them will be brief, I promise. This week was a major milestone for our community, as now all of our students in our South Orange Maplewood School District public schools have gone back to school, or at least been given the opportunity to go back to school. And it was really nice. Monday morning, I walked my daughter down to Jefferson, and Jefferson was because it's just a grade 3 through 5 school, no students had gone back yet, because grades 3 through 5 hadn't been in school since last March. So it was it was really nice, and the kids were so excited to get back. So I really want to applaud first of all the kids and their parents, who made it through this, but also all the educators and teachers and administrators in our district who overcame the challenges and did the tough work to get our kids back to school, and we did it. Now it's we got to keep them there and try to get things closer to normal for next school year starting in September. But this week we can celebrate that we've got the kids back in school. Ms. Fritz and I was one of the folks who was watching on YouTube the bid openings last week, including the liquor license. I know we can't approve that quite yet, but was glad to see that we got a bid. The bid was well above the minimum that we were looking to see, and I think that bidder and the location they're going to use that license in is going to really be a great project for the future of our community and our village. Some upcoming meetings. Community Board on Police, as Deputy Mayor Daffis mentioned, is meeting tomorrow night, May 5th. That meeting is on Zoom. I actually won't be able to make it tomorrow night due to another commitment, but they will be, in terms of liaison and Mr. Daffis's able hands, and maybe my absence will be incentive for some members of the public to attend. We'll see. The meeting that I will be attending will be Public Safety Committee meeting. Regular monthly meeting of the Public Safety Committee will be next Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. also via Zoom. The link to that is on the Township's website. Just again call attention to something that was mentioned by our public health officer and during our Board of Health meeting, the canvassing this Saturday. I think it's going to be a really great time. I think that's important. I've signed up. I'm looking forward to getting out there for a few hours on Saturday and being part of the team that's going to let our residents know and about the opportunity to get vaccinated, the importance of being vaccinated. And yeah, if we want to get our community healthy and we want to get back to normal and get over the COVID crisis and beat the variants and and get through this, we need to get vaccines in arms. So let's get out there. So any of you who can join us, I think the more the merrier. And I look forward to seeing many of you on Saturday. Lots of activity around the pool. You've heard about some of it tonight. Mr. Jimes mentioned the bid came in for lifeguard services. We're hoping that ends up meeting with approval. We're on tonight's consent agenda, as the mayor mentioned, approving Freeman's bid. It's a revised bid because of the shortened season and the limits that are going to be placed because of the time windows. But Freeman's will be back offering lobster rolls and their other wonderful things in the pool, and that'll be great. And we'll hopefully make this summer at the Maplewood pool really feel like a return to normal for a lot of us for whom summers around the pool are a key part of what we look forward to when the weather warms up here in Maplewood. Membership is open. You can register now. Don't wait till the pool's already open to sign up. Register now so you can join us this summer at the pool. The last item is this Sunday is Mother's Day. So just want to wish all the mothers out there, including Ms. Adams and Ms. Fritzen, and any mothers who might be out there tonight, a happy Mother's Day. That's my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Lembrick.
Thank you, Mr. Lembrick.
Good. That was nice at the end. I like that, Mr. Lembrick. Well done.
Thank you.
One of the hard parts about going last is that almost everything is covered. But that being said, I do have a few things that I want to communicate. And just like Mr. DeLuca, I'm a big believer in sharing screens. One of the things we talked about in the finance committee meeting was, the finance, talking about the budget, is the lack of revenue. And so when we talk about the lack of revenue, it comes from not having some of the services that we provide for the community. And so I'm just highlighting one of the things from our rec department newsletter about our spring skills after school basketball grades 3 to 8. It starts tomorrow, but it's on Wednesdays. When you click that register here button, that'll lead you to our town website where you have the ability to register for the program. So again, there are services that we're kicking back up. Please engage, of course. And then also while we're talking about other activities in town, I want to highlight our wonderful SID Springfield Avenue, the open air retail market, also starting tomorrow and is on Wednesdays from 11 to 3. Continue to come out and support our local businesses. It's such an important thing. And as Mr. Lembrick articulated, Mother's Day is right around the corner. And what greater places to go to, such as Remerch and Lotus Petals, to get some flowers or to gift for the ones that you love. So please go out and support our local businesses on Mother's Day. And kudos to also to the Maplewood Village Alliance for a wonderful market that we had this past Saturday. Baker Street, for example, was just booming. It was a lot of fun. It was great to see a lot of Maplewood residents out there, people I hadn't seen in months. People were all masked up. It was wonderful. So just want to give a shout out to the work that our SIDs and SID managers are doing. Residents, you should be aware that some of you will receive a document or email or letter from PSE&G. They're doing work throughout the community, and part of this electric service work that they're doing, you're going to have some of your service interrupted. We've been working with our colleagues and our connection to PSE&G, so you should receive an advance notice. This is an example of the notice communicating the date and time in which your service would be interrupted, and noted it will potentially impact your burglary alarm or your fire alarm system. So just note that I know that some incidents happened previously and a letter didn't get there and there was some confusion, but it's just an example I ripped out just to kind of let everyone know that this is a process, just like when American Water has been draining out some of the fire hydrants in the areas. Also, it is, as we talked about the proclamation, it is Asian American Pacific Islander Month. We have some wonderful events that have been created by the community. In fact, this Friday evening at 6 p.m. In Rippleton Square, we'll kick off with some dragons and some other activity as well. So please join us out there this Friday, May 7th, 6 p.m. at Rippleton Square. And that being said, even though we're looking at Asian American Pacific Islander Month, it just kicked off. Communications and meetings are ongoing for both Pride and Juneteenth. We got a lot of events that we're lining up. So the events and festivals continue. So it's a great, exciting time to be in Maplewood. And then, as Mr. DeLuca talked about pedestrian safety, I just want to give an example of residents had reached out to us about some concerns that they had regarding crossing Valley Street at Tuscan. That intersection has always been a confusing and challenging intersection to get across for kids going to Tuscan, for kids going to MMS, for commuters heading over to the train station, or just people heading to the village. So we were able to work with the county and with our consultants and with our engineering department. Kudos to them. And through an evaluation process, we were able to come up with a resolution working with the county to find a way to, within the constructs of when that walking time is accessible, but putting up new signage as you see here, and then also making sure that the red light during that signage, the red light did not, the light was red while people can cross. And so I think that's a great story. And so here you can see it in actuality. So now, effective now, as of last week, residents can walk safely across an extra, I think it's 7 seconds while the light is red versus this being green, and trying to manage that at the same time. And so that's a collaborative event with our consultant, with our engineer and his team, as well as the county. So I just wanted to recognize that. So, and then finally, as mentioned by Mr. Limbrick, I'm very happy that as I was going somewhere yesterday, that actually walking my dog, that a school bus pulled up. It's been a long time coming for many of our residents in our community. And we know that the schools are the backbone of our community. And I do want to recognize the ability for both SOMEA as well as our school district to collaborate with the greater good of our children. And it was just great to see that volume, as Mr. Limbrick talked about. So we're almost there. We're getting back in many ways, and in our schooling our kids, or having the option to be in our schools, is a big part of that. So I think that's a great story and a win for our community. So with that, that is my report, and we'll now move on to our discussion items. And Mr. DeLuca, you have the first discussion item, so I'll yield the floor to you.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to give a report on the Communications Committee meeting that was held on April 29th. And the first part of that is the Wi-Fi project. This was our first attempt at community-based budgeting. And the vote was by the community to initiate a Wi-Fi project in the Seth Boyden area, and want to give kudos to Mr. Daffis for his work on this. We worked really hard to deal with some significant technological issues, and then, of course, recruiting people to participate. We had a goal of around 40 to 45 families participating. Unfortunately, we never got more than 5. We have 5 right now. For a number of reasons, people, they just changed their mind or didn't want to participate, or already had wireless, so it wasn't, or Wi-Fi, so it wasn't something that they needed. Our communications committee is recommending that we end the project as of September 1st. We run it through the summer, or now and through the summer. We hope that everybody will be back in school full-time September 1st, but this way it allows any of those families who still may need it while we're still in hybrid to be able to utilize Wi-Fi. So our recommendation is to end the project on September 1st. We're spending about $2,000 a month right now, and we don't want to continue that. So, at this point, we just end it. I don't think there's any necessary action that we need to take. It'll just terminate. Okay. And then tonight on the consent agenda, 12721, we have a resolution for Granicus. It's to do a new website and to do, it will allow us to do management of our township committee agenda, the minutes. We will really be able to do so much more. This is an easy to use and improved content management system. It will improve the efficiency of our employees, and we're also looking to consolidate the SDL onto the website. So we're really excited. Mr. Jimes came to us with this recommendation, along with some others that I'll run through. But this will be our first effort to really redesign this website. As part of this, we will do some focus groups on content, both inside government and outside, to make sure that what we're putting up there is what people want to read, and how we're designing the navigation works for people. So this will be a process, and we'll continue the process. And the first step tonight is to pass that resolution. And we expect that this website, as most websites, will be good for about 5 years, and then they'll work with us to start redesigning another website in 5 years. Just some additional things we're going to be looking at. OpenGov is another software product, and that helps with boards and committees and other things. Just makes government more accessible for folks. That's a costly item, but we're looking at that for the future. Jitney service, making sure we have some kind of GPS system so people know where the jitneys are when they're waiting to get to the train or from the train. Eliminating parking permits through another software product. Something called Policy Stat, which is managed documents internally. And then we're also going to be changing our payroll system to allow us to be in better control of our payroll system. So that's where we are right now. We'll be continuing to meet and improving our Wi-Fi. We're going to be looking also at the coordination of our different websites that we have: police, fire, arts and culture. Make sure we all have some coordination there. We're going to be looking at email alerts, how we're doing that, both from the technological side of it and also the policy side. And then figure out how we're going to designate someone who's going to be responsible as the public information officer, the flow of that. We don't think we have the resources to hire someone, but we're going to look internally to see who's going to be that person. In the past, it has been the assistant administrator. That was part of the job when it was created, when we voted to make that position probably 6 assistant administrators ago. So we're going to look at that again, and Mr. Jimes is going to work on the job description and the tasks for that person. So that's who we are.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuca.
I don't know if Mr. Jimes has anything that I missed.
No, you covered it all. Just
More
other
than
good
you
things.
wanted. I communicated more than you wanted.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. All right, as we approach the 3.5-hour mark of our time together, I'll now yield the floor to Mr. Desiderio.
Mayor, quickly, I received a letter from a law firm representing the Marcus Ward Homestead. And I'll just read 2 quick paragraphs. Most of the residents enjoy meals in our common dining room in the main building. As part of the vibrant social life in our community, many of the residents have expressed a desire to have a formal bar and lounge near the dining area to enjoy alcoholic beverages with their meals. In order for alcoholic beverages, the residents of Winchester would need to acquire a club license. The township code allows 2 licenses, etc. There's a 3-year actually wait list on it. However, they're going to ask for a waiver, but before they do that, before they go to the state ABC, they just wanted an informal feel from the governing body. If they were to get this waiver, would the township committee favorably entertain this request? I
I have a question for Ms. Desiderio, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry?
Question, Mr. Desiderio.
Yeah, I just bring this to you. I said that I would bring it for your consideration. Go ahead, Mr. Lembrecht.
Thank you, Mr. Desiderio. So, the township, we can issue up to 2, is that correct? And we currently have 1 issued?
You may issue more. You may issue more than 2. What our ordinance presently provides is for 2.
And of those, we've issued 1.
I believe we only have 1 outstanding. That is correct. I'm not even sure it's active. Is that right, Mrs. Fritzen?
No, we have 1 very active at the Maplewood Club on Ridgewood Road.
Ridgewood.
But just to give some history, for a long time, we did have 2 club licenses. The other being
we don't need the history. It's late. The answer is we have 1.
I gave a short history, but I wanted to just say that we did have 2 for quite a while, and that was the Maplewood VFW.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, so the other question I have, Mr. Desiderio, is, how much would Winchester Gardens pay for the license, and would the payment go to us, or would it go somewhere else?
The answer is the payment would go. I don't believe there is a payment, Mrs. Fritzen.
Well, there's an annual fee that the township would receive, and according to our ordinance, and we're pretty much, I believe, at the max, you're looking at $150 per year.
This is not like selling.
How can we turn away that? That's all I had, Mr. Desiderio. I don't see unless you're going to tell me that there's some reason, that we're taking on some sort of liability here. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't have it.
And there are a lot of restrictions to go with a club license. You can't serve third parties. You can only have members and their guests. So it's not like it's a general consumption license. It's very much more limited. So I'm not getting a sense that there's any, and they're not committed to anything at this point, but I'm not getting a sense that there's opposition. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's not like I'm concerned at Winchester. It's not like they're going to be serving minors.
No, definitely majors. Mr. Desiderio, you forgot all the members that became members when the Baker Street Club. You remember the club on Baker Street? Everybody became a member. It was like cheers.
Yes, I do remember. Yeah.
Is this going to Winchester Gardens or to the resident group?
That's a fair question. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I thought it was the
written. It's really they're talking about their club, because they have to establish a club to be able to get the license.
Yeah, I don't think Winchester Gardens can do it as an entity. It has to be some humans who come together as a club.
And I think that's what she suggested.
Any other discussion? Okay, Mr. Desiderio, I think we're open.
I will merely report back to her that there's no opposition and you reserve your right to review it if it comes before you specifically.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, we'll now move on to our third and final discussion item this evening, which is mine, which is regarding authorizing securing an estimate for a need of a rehabilitation study for 7 West Parker. For those who attended the seed meeting, you might remember meeting these developers, minority developers, Brandon and Robbie. They provided a letter which I distributed to everyone here on the Township Committee, as well as Mr. Desiderio has a copy. And really, this is just the first step in a phased process where we would just authorize securing an estimate. We would need to use a third party, the same part, well, potentially the same party we use for 104 Baker, and just looking for everyone to be in agreement with that.
I don't remember getting the letter. Can you send that again?
Yeah, I'll resend it to you.
Okay. I just want to put up two things. I want to speak in favor of it, but I want to, if I can, share something. Why, I don't know, but because I think this is important, and I think the rationale, we have to talk about why we would be doing something like this. And this is something from the Economic Development Plan of 1999. I know it's dated, but this talks about that area over there, and it really talks about increasing the amount of commercial activity is inadvisable because of the residential characters surrounding neighborhoods and further decentralized commercial activity in town. So I think the idea of putting a multi-use building there, a residential building, makes a lot of sense because it is something that is supported by our plans over the years. And then also, I'll just share this, in the 2011 master plan, here's another section which talks about the area, and it says, essentially no single family homes. It is appropriate location for new development that include a range of commercial and multifamily residential uses. So I think, and then it recommends changing the zoning. So I think that's exactly what this does. It allows us to think about residential there. I don't think we need more commercial there, certainly not retail. It doesn't make sense. And it's consistent with the other building that was approved on Valley Street. So I think this is a good move, and making it a redevelopment area, if we get that far, will allow us to have say over the development and the strategy of what they're developing. So I think this is a good prime piece of property to utilize the redevelopment plan. So I'd be in favor of getting an estimate to see what the study costs.
We completely agree, Mr. DeLuca.
I took a long time to get that through.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, I agree with Mr. DeLuca. Look, we'll have to see what the study says, but I suspect, as a non-expert, my suspicion is that, without significant rehabilitation in that area, given the prior use, that the only things that area would be good for right now would be another dry cleaning operation or a parking lot. And, unless another dry cleaner is going in there, and it doesn't seem like that's the case, we want something useful there. And as Mr. Lucas said, what we want is going to be something that's going to require probably us to take a more active role. And so yeah, I'd like to do a study there, and let's find out what it's going to cost, and get some guidance from experts and professionals in terms of next steps here. But I think that's a great location in our community, right on Parker, near a major intersection, near the high school. Let's get this going in the right direction and make the right decisions there.
Thank you, Mr. Limper.
I fully support it as well, Mayor. I think everything that Mr. DeLuca and Mr. Limbrick have said, I echo those remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis. Ms. Adams?
Yeah, I'm in support of getting an estimate. I was a little concerned with the letter we received, and the ask I thought was pretty big. So I think we get somebody to get another set of eyes on this whole thing, but this is the very beginning of this process. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. we'll go ahead and Mr. Desiderio, what's the next step here? We do have
Well,
authorization.
Mr. Jimes, if we can secure a proposal or proposals to do a study, that would be the next. Once we get that, it'll come back to you. We'll have a monetary amount. And if you're in agreement, you then pass a resolution awarding a contract for the work to be done.
Thank you, Mr. Desiderio.
Do we need to pass a motion to authorize Mr. Jimes to get the?
No reason not to.
I'll second it.
Well, I can't pass it. Mr. DeLuca, you moving it?
I'm moving
He
it.
moved it.
I'm moving it.
He moved it. I second it. So, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. All right, we are now on agenda item number 22, which is our consent agenda. I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull resolution, I think it's number 6 on the list, but it's number, what?
121-21, Ms.
Right.
Adams.
Thank you. Just trying to find my agenda on the screen. Yeah, and we can discuss it after and vote on the rest of the agenda, or.
So, Mr. Mayor, in light of that, I'd like to move items number 1 through 5 and 7 through 19 on the consent agenda.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Awesome. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Okay, we'll now look at resolution number 121-21. Ms. Adams.
Yes, I know these things cost a lot of money. This is for replacing the pump station at DPW. We've already abated the environmental issue as we were required to do by DEP. And currently we have an arrangement to get our vehicular gas, mostly for our police, fire, and DPW, any vehicles at Wawa and other adjacent municipalities. Mostly, I just would like to kick this back. I mean, I don't think there's an emergency to pay this, and it is $1.2 million to approve this tonight. So I'd like to kick it to Engineering and Public Works for further discussion. I'd like to have more of an analysis of how much it's costing us with the current arrangement for our vehicles to get the gas they need to run. And also I'd like our engineer to look at the site and see if we can't do better environmentally for our future as we talk about sustainability and transitioning as much as possible to electric vehicles for the municipality and even electric trucks at DPW. We talk about that all the time. And I think it's worth taking a step back for a couple of weeks and seeing if we can have a more fulsome discussion about that and what else is possible there, rather than just put in another, pumping station that takes up all the room it does. Because I was even thinking, and I may be completely naive and wrong about this, is whether or not we can put a smaller one in and then use some of this money for infrastructure for charging stations, as long as we're digging it up. So I guess I just want, and it won't cost us anything to delay it. So I just want a little more fulsome discussion on it before we just give award 1.2 million.
Any further discussion?
Yeah. I'm opposed to that. I think we should approve it tonight. I think that we did discuss this at Environmental Public Works and Planning. We asked the opinion of Mr. Schuster when he was here as the interim director, interim administrator, about whether or not we could continue to rely on the private sector to secure our fuel. We asked Mr. Kittner that. I think the opinion of both, and I haven't asked Mr. Jimes yet, was that we ought to have a municipal facility. We looked at what would work. I think we are building the appropriate size facility. So I would urge us to move ahead with this. We went out to bid on this. We got over a half a dozen bids. This was the lowest bid, and the highest bid was really a lot more than this. And I think there's also a legal problem. We can't now change the whole structure of the bid.
Yes, we can. We're not obligated. We can turn down all the bids if we change our mind on what we could do. But I'm not even saying that's what.
Ms. Abs, let's let Mr. DeLuca finish.
Sorry.
In my opinion, I think we're putting ourselves in legal jeopardy, but I wouldn't even argue that because I'm not an attorney. Somebody can do that. But I think that we ought to move ahead. We've talked about this long enough.
Okay, thank you, Mr. DeLuca. Ms. Adams, do you want to rebuttal there?
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna get us in any legal jeopardy to postpone this by 2 weeks and find out more, because one thing we didn't discuss, even though we discussed it, and I'm not saying we should forever outsource where we get our gas, and we did discuss that part, but what we didn't discuss was the size that we could use and the whether or not we could incorporate, as long as we're digging it up, some green infrastructure. It may even end up making it cost more if we can't, reduce the size of the pumping station. But I think it's for our own good and it doesn't hurt anything. And as long as Mr. Desiderio agrees that we're not, the bid was opened, we're not obligated to take any of them if we change our mind, are we?
Well,
within the next 2 weeks.
You can't just change your mind. If you're going to abandon the project, you can do that.
Right.
Reducing the size could create a problem. Okay, because you put it out with specifics, and this bidder did this. Certainly, getting more information, putting it off for 2 weeks is. I don't think Ms. James. I'm not sure when this bid was received. I assume we're still within the 60 days. Do you have any sense of that?
It was received in the early April. As far as changing the specs, it's my understanding that.
I'm sorry, you what?
I said it was received April 8th, but and it was out probably for at least 30 days. So we're still okay as far as a delay there, if that was the wish of the committee. As it relates to the specifications, I think the only way that you would be okay with rejecting all bids and doing it again is if you were going to substantially change the bid specification.
I agree with Mr. James. If you were going to abandon the project because there's been a change, that's one thing. But I think that something short of that's going to be a problem.
Right. And I'm not suggesting we abandon the project unless, there's a possible way to either add to it to get some infrastructure in there or amend it. Or change what we're talking about.
We put it out for bid with specific bid specifications. And this contractor and the other 6 or however many did it that way. I don't know that we can change them like that without getting sued.
So thank you, Mr. Desiderio, Ms. Adams. Mr. Lindbergh or Mr. Daffis?
I'm trying to get a sense of, okay, so it seems that if we were to punt this to the May 18th consent agenda, which would allow us to discuss it another time in engineering public works, we would still be okay if we carry on as is. Is that right, Mr. Desiderio, in terms of the lead?
Yes, and you're certainly entitled to get more information. If you want more information, there's nothing wrong with that. That's why I asked about the 60 days. If you want to do that, you can certainly do that. Yes.
All right. So then I guess my follow-up question, Ms. Adams, is I'm just trying to think about practically how much information more than what we already have do you think that we'll be able to get from Mr. Kittner and or any other possible expert between now and the 18th?
Well, I don't know. I think that's the discussion we could have at next week's engineering public works briefly, if we can't get any more information. But I did want more of a realistic idea on, and maybe it's just what do you call it? Another separate bid, or maybe it's a change order, if that's possible. But that's, after the fact.
So Mr. Daffis, unless we're willing to reject all the bids, all the information we're going to get is not going to help us. It's either going to vote for this or you're not going to vote for this, and you're going to have a reason not to vote for this. You can't go and change the bid now. You can't change the scope of the work. So even if we get more information that we agree that we'd like to have charging stations, it has nothing to do with this bid. This bid was sent out to do a gas pump. And that's what we have to decide, yes or no.
Got it. Thank you for that.
Mr. Limbrick.
I guess it just seems like we've gone pretty far down the road, and it seems kind of late at this point. Whether we vote on this on May 4 or May 18, I guess I don't feel particularly strongly. I guess I just don't know whether there's, is anything going to happen in the next 2 weeks that realistically is going to change what we're going to do on May 18th, or, given what Mr. Desiderio said are sort of our legal options. But, if it's a matter of, if it's not going to prejudice us in terms of getting this done, to move it to May 18, and that's going to allow us to potentially get information and everyone to feel more comfortable, I'm fine with that. But, I don't anticipate voting against it unless there ends up being something better that comes along.
Well, okay.
Okay. Let's just call it. All right.
I think we've got to be careful. You can't do that.
Right.
This is a legally big
Okay. You know what? There's a lot of this discussion that you really need to have legal advice on. Nothing better is going to come along. Okay. Mayor, respectfully, I think you should call the vote.
I'm going to call the vote. Exactly. Okay. Ms. Fritzen, please call. Please.
I'll move the resolution, whatever number it is.
121-21.
121.
All right. I'll second it. Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
No.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes.
Okay, passes 4-1, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Okay, we'll now move on to agenda item number 23, public comment on any subject matter. We have 2 people with us at this point. Nick, does Bob or Ms. Cristal want to speak?
I do not believe so, Mayor. I do not have any takers.
Great. Seeing none, we'll close our public hearing. We are now at our final agenda item, which is adjournment for May the 4th be with you. Can I get a motion?
Adjourned.
All right, well, may the